You have been taught that loving someone means giving more, waiting longer, forgiving every silence, and staying even when your heart feels empty. But if love is meant to bring two people closer, why do you feel yourself slowly disappearing? Why do you speak less, ask for less, and hide your pain just to keep someone who does not love you in the same way? Why do you keep protecting their feelings while your own heart is left unseen? The truth is, when you keep loving without being loved, you do not only lose the relationship you hoped for, you begin to lose yourself. You lose your peace by waiting for messages that never come. You lose your confidence by wondering what is wrong with you. You lose your voice by staying quiet because you are afraid of pushing them away. You lose your identity by becoming whatever you think they need. Buddhist wisdom teaches that suffering grows when you cling to someone who cannot meet you with the same care. When your happiness depends on being chosen by them, your life becomes trapped inside their attention, their moods, and their absence. As you listen to these lessons, something inside you may begin to awaken. The confusion will slowly clear, the weight of rejection will begin to lift, and you will understand that love should never require you to betray yourself. You will see that walking away does not mean your love was weak, and letting go does not mean your heart was false. It means you are finally choosing to stop losing yourself for someone who was never truly holding you. This is not just another lesson about unreturned love. This is the moment you begin returning to yourself. Are you ready? Let us begin. And this is where the return to yourself truly begins, because before you can stop losing yourself in love, you must learn to recognize the moment compassion stops being kindness and starts becoming permission for someone to neglect you. There is a painful difference between understanding someone and constantly excusing them. At first, that difference can be difficult to see. You may tell yourself that they are distant because they have been hurt before. You may believe they struggle to show love because no one ever taught them how. You may defend their silence by saying they are stressed, tired, afraid, or emotionally confused. Each explanation may sound reasonable on its own, but after a while, those explanations can become a wall that protects them from responsibility while leaving you alone with the pain. Compassion is beautiful when it allows you to see another person clearly. It helps you understand that people often act from fear, insecurity, old wounds, and habits they have carried for years. It reminds you that not every hurtful action comes from cruelty. Some people cause pain because they are trapped inside pain of their own. But understanding the source of their behavior does not mean you must continue receiving the result of it. Their past may explain why they struggle to love you, but it does not make your loneliness less real. This is where many loving people become trapped. They believe that because someone has suffered, they must accept whatever that person does. They start treating every wound as permission. A difficult childhood becomes permission for emotional distance. A painful past relationship becomes permission for suspicion. Fear of commitment becomes permission for inconsistency. Stress becomes permission for disrespect. Personal struggles become permission to disappear whenever care is needed. Little by little, compassion becomes a reason to expect less and tolerate more. You may not notice the change immediately. It often happens slowly. You begin by giving them extra time. Then you stop asking for certain things because you know they find emotions difficult. You become careful with your words so they do not feel pressured. You lower your expectations so they do not feel inadequate. You accept short conversations, broken promises, unanswered messages, and affection that appears only when it is convenient for them. You call this patience, but deep inside something begins to ache. The ache comes from knowing that you are making room for their pain while they are making very little room for yours. You listen when they are overwhelmed, but they become uncomfortable when you need to be heard. You remember what matters to them, but they forget what matters to you. You notice every change in their mood, yet they rarely ask why you have become quiet. You become a safe place for their feelings, while your own feelings are treated like a burden. Buddhist compassion is not blindness. It does not ask you to look away from what is happening. It asks you to look more deeply. Clear seeing is one of the most important parts of wisdom. It means observing reality without allowing hope, fear, guilt, or attachment to change what you see. When you look clearly, you stop asking only why they behave this way. You also begin asking what their behavior is doing to you. That question can feel uncomfortable because it moves your attention away from their story and back toward your own experience. You may have spent so much time studying their wounds that you have forgotten to notice your exhaustion. You may know every reason they pull away, but you may no longer know why you keep staying. You may understand their fear of closeness, but you may have ignored your growing fear of asking for love. True compassion includes both people. It does not require one heart to become invisible so another heart can feel safe. It does not say that their pain matters while yours must wait. It does not turn you into a quiet container for another person's anger, confusion, neglect, or emotional absence. Compassion that only flows in one direction eventually becomes depletion. There is nothing selfish about noticing that you are tired. There is nothing cruel about admitting that a relationship is hurting you. There is nothing unforgiving about wanting love to include care, effort, respect, and emotional presence. These are not impossible demands. They are basic signs that two people are participating in the relationship instead of one person carrying it while the other person occasionally appears. Many people fear that setting limits will make them cold. They worry that refusing neglect means they lack empathy. They may think a good person should always be patient, always be available, and always give another chance. But endless chances do not always create growth. Sometimes they only teach someone that they can continue acting the same way without losing access to your love. When neglect has no consequence, the person causing it may never need to examine themselves. Your forgiveness may comfort them without changing them. Your understanding may protect them from discomfort. Your constant return may reassure them that they can withdraw, dismiss, or disappoint you and still find you waiting in the same place. Without meaning to, your compassion may begin supporting the very behavior that is destroying your peace. This does not mean you caused their neglect. You are not responsible for the choices another person makes, but you are responsible for deciding what you continue to accept. That responsibility is not punishment. It is awareness. It is the moment you stop asking, "How can I make them treat me differently?" and begin asking, "Why am I teaching myself to live with what hurts me?" That question can reveal hidden beliefs. Perhaps you learned that love must be earned through sacrifice. Maybe you were praised for being the understanding one, the calm one, or the person who never caused trouble. You may have grown up believing your needs were inconvenient. You may have learned to read the room, care for other people's emotions, and remain silent about your own. Later, one-sided love can feel familiar because it repeats an old role. You know how to give, wait, adjust, and survive. Receiving may feel more unfamiliar than neglect. This is why compassion can become dangerous when it is not joined with self-awareness. You may think you are staying because you are loving, but part of you may be staying because you are afraid. You may fear that leaving would make you a bad person. You may fear they will fall apart without you. You may fear others will misunderstand your choice. You may even fear that no one else will want you, so you hold tightly to the little affection you receive. Fear often disguises itself as devotion. It tells you that leaving would be heartless. It reminds you of every vulnerable thing they have shared. It says they need you, even if they do not value you. It convinces you that one more act of patience may finally open their heart. But compassion is not supposed to imprison you inside another person's unfinished healing. You can care about someone and still step away from what they are doing. You can wish them peace without becoming responsible for creating it. You can recognize their pain without allowing that pain to become your daily environment. You can hope they grow while accepting that you cannot force that growth. These truths do not cancel love. They remove the belief that love must always cost you your dignity. A person may be wounded and still be responsible for how they treat you. Both things can be true. They may struggle with closeness and still need to communicate honestly. They may fear rejection and still need to respect your boundaries. They may have experienced betrayal and still need to avoid punishing you for what someone else did. They may be overwhelmed and still need to acknowledge the effect of their absence. Maturity begins when explanations are no longer used as escapes. A healthy person may say, "I know I withdraw when I am afraid, but I see how that hurts you, and I want to work on it." An unhealthy pattern sounds different. It says, "This is just how I am, so you must accept it." One response takes responsibility. The other places the entire burden on you. You do not need perfection from another person. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone becomes distracted, tired, defensive, or emotionally unavailable at times. Neglect is not one forgotten message or one difficult week. It is a pattern in which your emotional life is repeatedly treated as unimportant. It is the growing feeling that you must shrink your needs to keep the relationship peaceful. Patterns matter because they reveal what promises often hide. Someone may say they love you, but their repeated actions show whether that love has room for your humanity. Words can create hope for a moment. Patterns shape your daily life. If their words are warm, but their behavior continually leaves you anxious, lonely, and uncertain, you must learn to trust what happens more than what is promised. This is part of Buddhist mindfulness. Mindfulness brings you back to what is here. It asks you to notice without immediately creating a story. What happens when you express a need? Do they listen, dismiss you, become angry, or disappear? What happens when you stop doing all the emotional work? Does the connection continue, or does everything fall silent? What happens when you are no longer useful to them? Do they remain curious about you, or do they lose interest? These questions are not meant to make you suspicious. They help you separate love from fantasy. Fantasy focuses on what could happen. Mindfulness notices what keeps happening. Fantasy says they will change when life becomes easier. Mindfulness sees that life has changed many times, but the pattern remains. Fantasy says they love deeply but struggle to show it. Mindfulness asks whether a love that is never shown can meet your emotional needs. You may feel guilty for examining the relationship this way. You may worry that you are keeping score, but awareness is not the same as keeping score. You are not counting every mistake. You are noticing whether care is mutual. You are asking whether the relationship gives both people space to exist. That is not selfish. It is honest. Honesty is necessary because emotional neglect can change the way you see yourself. When your needs are ignored long enough, you may begin to believe they are unreasonable. When your feelings are dismissed, you may begin hiding them. When affection is given unpredictably, you may become grateful for the smallest amount. You start celebrating crumbs because you have forgotten what a full meal feels like. A brief moment of attention can then feel powerful. One kind message may erase a week of distance in your mind. One apology may make you forget how many times the same thing happened. One affectionate evening may renew your hope for months. This creates an emotional cycle in which you survive long periods of emptiness for short moments of relief. Those moments may feel like proof that the relationship can become what you want. But occasional tenderness does not remove a repeated pattern of neglect. In fact, it may strengthen your attachment because uncertainty can make affection feel more valuable. When care is rare, you hold on to it tightly. You begin waiting for the next small sign that you still matter. Buddhist wisdom warns about attachment because attachment can distort perception. It does not mean you should never love deeply. It means suffering grows when you cling to a person, outcome, or hope so tightly that you refuse to see what it is costing you. Attachment says, I need this person to become different so I can finally feel at peace. Wisdom says, I must see who they are now and choose from reality. Choosing from reality may mean having an honest conversation. It may mean clearly explaining what you need and observing how they respond. It may mean setting a boundary around disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional absence. A boundary does not control another person. It states what you will do to protect your well-being if a harmful pattern continues. You might say, I care about you, but I cannot continue in a relationship where my feelings are ignored. You might say, I understand that closeness is difficult for you, but I need consistent communication. You might say, I will not continue this conversation when I am being insulted. These statements are not threats. They are clear expressions of reality. The hardest part is often following through. Many people state boundaries but remove them as soon as the other person becomes upset. Guilt appears. Fear appears. The other person may suddenly become affectionate, promise change, or accuse you of being unfair. Because you love them, you may abandon the limit to restore peace. But peace that requires you to betray yourself is not peace. It is temporary silence. The conflict may disappear for a moment, but the deeper wound remains. Each time you ignore your own boundary, you teach yourself that your needs are less important than another person's reaction. This is why self-compassion matters. Self-compassion means treating your own suffering with the same care you offer others. When you are hurting, you do not call yourself needy. When you are tired, you do not demand more sacrifice from yourself. When something repeatedly breaks your heart, you do not force yourself to remain simply because leaving is difficult. You may have shown extraordinary compassion to the person neglecting you. Now ask whether you have shown any compassion to the part of you that keeps waiting. That part may be exhausted. It may feel ashamed for wanting more. It may be afraid that speaking honestly will lead to abandonment. It needs your care, not your criticism. Return to that part gently. Tell yourself the truth without cruelty. You stayed because you hoped. You stayed because you loved. You stayed because you believed understanding could create closeness. These choices do not make you foolish. They show that your heart was willing to care. But a loving heart also needs wisdom, or it will keep pouring itself into places that never hold what it gives. Wisdom does not harden your heart. It gives your heart direction. It helps you know when to open, when to wait, when to speak, and when to leave. Without wisdom, compassion becomes endless surrender. With wisdom, compassion becomes love that respects truth. Truth may reveal that the person is not ready to love you in the way you need. That does not always make them evil. Some people are simply limited by what they refuse to face. They may care for you in the only way they know, but their way may still be deeply painful. You are allowed to admit that what they can offer is not enough for a healthy relationship. This can be one of the most difficult truths to accept because it removes the need to blame. Sometimes there is no villain. There are only two people, one giving what they can and the other slowly disappearing because it is not enough. You do not have to prove that someone is terrible before you are allowed to leave. Pain does not need a courtroom. Your experience does not require a final argument. You can say, I understand you, and I still cannot stay here. That sentence holds both compassion and wisdom. It does not deny their history. It does not attack their character. It simply refuses to make their pain more important than your life. Leaving neglect behind may initially feel cruel because you have confused availability with love. You may feel responsible for what happens to them after you step back. You may worry they will become lonely, angry, or wounded. But every adult must eventually meet the consequences of how they relate to others. Protecting someone from every consequence can prevent them from learning. Sometimes your absence becomes the first honest mirror they face. When you stop covering the emptiness, they may finally see it. When you stop accepting excuses, they may finally examine them. When you stop carrying the relationship, they may finally understand how little they were contributing. Whether they change is not yours to control, but your refusal to continue the pattern may create the possibility of truth. Even then, do not make your boundary another strategy to change them. A boundary must be for your protection, not a hidden test. If you step away only to make them chase you, you are still arranging your life around their response. The deeper freedom comes when you act because you know what you can no longer accept, whether they return or not. That freedom may feel empty at first. You may miss them. You may question your choice. You may remember their pain and feel tempted to rescue them again. This does not mean the boundary was wrong. It means your heart is adjusting to a life where love is no longer confused with suffering. Give yourself time. The mind often returns to familiar pain because unfamiliar peace feels strange. You may have become so used to waiting, explaining, and hoping that calm feels almost uncomfortable. Without their unpredictability, there may be silence. But that silence is not proof that you have lost everything. It may be the first space in which you can hear yourself again. In that space, begin noticing what you abandoned. Perhaps you stopped. Seeing friends because you were always available for them. Perhaps you neglected your health because emotional stress consumed your energy. Perhaps you lost interest in hobbies, plans, or dreams because your attention was fixed on the relationship. Compassion for yourself means slowly returning to these parts of life. It also means rebuilding trust in your own feelings. If something hurts, you are allowed to notice it before explaining it away. If you feel lonely, you do not need to accuse yourself of being too demanding. If you feel unseen, you can examine the pattern instead of automatically blaming yourself. Your emotions are not always perfect judgments, but they are important signals. Pain often tells you that something needs attention. It may point to an old wound inside you, a harmful pattern outside you, or both. Wisdom listens without obeying blindly. It asks, "What is this feeling showing me?" It does not silence the feeling simply because another person finds it inconvenient. As you learn this, compassion becomes cleaner. You stop using kindness to avoid difficult decisions. You stop calling self-abandonment patience. You stop confusing another person's vulnerability with a promise that they will change. You can be warm without being weak, understanding without being trapped, and forgiving without returning to the same wound. Forgiveness does not require continued access. You can release anger without reopening the door. You can stop wishing punishment on someone while still protecting yourself from their behavior. You can remember their humanity without forgetting your own. This is one of the quiet strengths Buddhist wisdom offers. It teaches that love and detachment can exist together. Detachment is not indifference. It is the decision to stop gripping what causes suffering. It is seeing another person clearly without demanding they become someone else. It is allowing them to walk their path while you stop sacrificing your path to follow them. When compassion is guided by wisdom, you no longer ask how much pain you can endure in the name of love. You begin asking whether love is helping both people become more honest, responsible, and awake. You notice whether the relationship allows truth or depends on silence. You observe whether care flows both ways or only toward the person who gives the least. Most importantly, you stop believing that refusing neglect makes you unkind. There is kindness in telling the truth. There is kindness in refusing to support harmful behavior. There is kindness in releasing a person from a relationship they are unwilling to nurture. There is kindness in giving yourself the chance to live without constantly begging to be considered. You do not need to become bitter. You do not need to hate them. You do not need to erase every good memory. You only need to stop using those memories to deny the present. A beautiful beginning does not excuse a painful pattern. Their best moments do not cancel the way you feel most of the time. Compassion becomes healthy when it can hold the whole truth. They may have been hurt, and they hurt you. They may care, and their care may be insufficient. They may have good qualities, and the relationship may still be unhealthy. You may love them, and staying may still require you to lose yourself. When you can hold these truths together, you no longer need to choose between kindness and self-respect. You can have both. You can leave without cruelty. You can speak without attacking. You can protect yourself without wishing them harm. You can carry love in your heart without allowing that love to become permission for neglect. That is the beginning of freedom. It is the moment compassion stops asking you to disappear. It is the moment you understand that another person's wounds are not instructions for how much pain you must accept. It is the moment you stop proving your goodness through suffering and begin practicing a compassion wide enough to include yourself. And once you begin including yourself, you see something that attachment kept hidden for a long time. You were never asking for too much. You are asking the wrong person to give what they repeatedly showed they were unwilling or unable to offer. The answer is not to become smaller. The answer is to stop calling neglect love simply because you understand where it comes from. You can understand them and choose yourself. You can forgive them and close the door. You can care about their healing and refuse to become the place where their unhealed pain is acted out. That is not the end of compassion. That is compassion finally joined with wisdom. The moment you stop excusing neglect, another truth becomes harder to avoid. Sometimes you are not holding on because of who the person is today. You are holding on because of who you believe they may become tomorrow. And while you wait for that future version to appear, the present version keeps leaving you lonely. There is a quiet kind of heartbreak that comes from loving someone's potential. It does not always feel like heartbreak at first. It can feel like faith. You see their kindness beneath their silence. You notice the tenderness they show for a few moments and believe it reveals who they truly are. You remember the promises they made when they were afraid of losing you. You hold on to the rare days when they listened, opened up, or made you feel deeply loved. Those moments become proof in your mind that the relationship can still become beautiful. You begin to believe that the loving person you met briefly is the real person, while the distant, careless, or inconsistent person you experience most days is only a temporary version. You tell yourself that stress is hiding their true heart. You believe fear is blocking the affection they really want to give. You assume time will remove the walls between you. Because you have seen small signs of who they could become, you build an entire future around those signs. But potential is not the same as reality. Potential is a possibility. Reality is what repeatedly meets you when you wake up, speak honestly, ask for care, or need support. Potential lives inside your hopes. Reality lives inside your daily experience. When the two are very different, loving potential can require you to deny what is happening in front of you. This denial may be gentle rather than obvious. You may not openly lie to yourself. You simply focus on the parts that keep hope alive. You remember the apology but forget how often the behavior returned. You remember the promise but ignore how little action followed it. You remember the affection but overlook the long periods of emotional absence. Your mind gathers every small sign of change and uses it to protect the future you want. Buddhist wisdom encourages clear seeing because suffering grows when the mind refuses to accept what is present. The mind often reaches for what it wants rather than resting with what is true. It creates a picture of how someone should behave, how the relationship should feel, and how the story should end. Then it becomes attached to that picture. The person standing before you may not match the picture, but craving keeps adjusting the explanation instead of changing the expectation. You say they are not ready yet. You say they need more patience. You say they are close to understanding. You say the relationship is going through a difficult season. You keep moving the moment of change further into the future because accepting the present would force you to face a painful choice. Hope can be powerful, but hope without evidence can become a way of postponing truth. It allows you to remain emotionally invested without asking whether your investment is being returned. It keeps you focused on the next conversation, the next chance, the next promise, or the next sign. You live toward a future that has not arrived while your current life becomes filled with waiting. Waiting changes you. At first, you may wait with confidence. You believe love and patience will create movement. Later, you wait with anxiety. You begin searching for proof that something is changing. You study their words, moods, and actions. A small improvement gives you relief. A setback makes you work harder. Your emotional state becomes tied to whether they appear to be moving toward the person you hope they will become. This can turn the relationship into a project. Instead of meeting another person as they are, you begin guiding, encouraging, reminding, teaching, forgiving, and repairing. You may send them articles, explain healthy communication, recommend ways they can heal, or carefully describe what the relationship needs. You become less like a loved partner and more like a patient coach waiting for their progress. The danger is not that growth is impossible. People can change. They can become more honest, responsible, open, and loving, but meaningful change requires their decision, effort, and consistency. Your belief in them cannot replace their willingness to act. Your love cannot do their inner work. Your patience cannot make them face what they continue avoiding. You may see abilities in them that they do not yet use. You may know they are capable of tenderness because you have received it in rare moments. You may know they can communicate because they do so when they want something. You may know they can make an effort because they did so at the beginning. But being capable of something does not mean they are committed to practicing it. This difference matters. A person may have the potential to love you well and still choose not to develop that potential. They may have the ability to listen and still avoid difficult conversations. They may understand your pain and still continue the behavior causing it. They may know exactly what you need and still decide that giving it requires more effort than they want to make. When you focus only on ability, you may overlook willingness. You say, "I know they can become better," when the more important question is, are they choosing to become better? Possibility can inspire hope, but commitment creates change. Without commitment, potential remains an idea that you carry for them. Sometimes you become attached to potential because it makes your suffering feel meaningful. If the relationship eventually becomes what you dreamed, then all the waiting, forgiving, and disappointment may seem worthwhile. You may believe the difficult years will become the opening part of a beautiful story. You may tell yourself that one day you will look back and be grateful you did not give up. This creates a powerful emotional trap. Leaving would not only mean losing the person, it would mean releasing the future you built in your mind. You would have to admit that your sacrifices may not lead to the reward you expected. You would have to grieve time, plans, conversations, and dreams that never became real. Staying can feel easier because it allows the dream to remain alive. But a dream that keeps you trapped in pain is not always hope. Sometimes it is attachment wearing hopeful language. Buddhist teachings do not ask you to live without dreams. They ask you not to confuse a mental picture with the truth of the present moment. You can desire growth while still seeing whether growth is occurring. Clear seeing begins with observation. Do not ask only what they say they will do. Notice what they repeatedly do. Do not ask only what they feel when they fear losing you. Notice how they behave after the crisis passes. Do not judge the relationship by its most beautiful moments. Look at the ordinary days when there is no argument, threat, celebration, or dramatic apology. Ordinary days reveal the structure of a relationship. They show whether care appears naturally or only after conflict. They reveal whether communication is consistent or forced. They show whether your emotional safety matters when there is no immediate danger of you leaving. Anyone can become attentive for a short time when loss feels close. Sustainable love is revealed when effort continues after comfort returns. This is why temporary improvement can be misleading. A person may change for a week after you confront them. They may send more messages, offer affection, and speak about the future. Their sudden effort renews your belief. You think the person you have been waiting for has finally arrived. Then, slowly, the old pattern returns. When this happens repeatedly, you may keep treating each improvement as the beginning of permanent change. Yet the return to the old pattern is also information. It may show that they are motivated by fear of consequences rather than a sincere desire to grow. They do enough to keep the relationship from ending, but not enough to create the relationship you need. Real change is not measured by strong emotions in one conversation. It is measured by different choices made consistently over time. It includes responsibility without excuses, effort without constant reminders, and growth that continues even when no one is watching. It does not require you to keep threatening departure before your needs are taken seriously. Another reason potential becomes so attractive is that it protects you from seeing incompatibility. You may deeply love someone who does not share your values, emotional depth, goals, or understanding of commitment. Instead of accepting that difference, you may believe they will eventually want what you want. You tell yourself they will become more affectionate, more dependable, more honest, or more interested in building a life together. But not every difference is a stage that someone will outgrow. Some differences reveal who they are, what they value, and how they choose to live. A person who enjoys emotional distance may not secretly desire the closeness you need. Someone who avoids responsibility may not be waiting for the right motivation. A person who repeatedly chooses freedom from commitment may not be confused. They may simply want a different kind of life. Accepting this does not mean judging them as bad. It means recognizing that love cannot erase every difference. Two people can care about each other and still be unable to create a healthy life together. Attraction can be strong while compatibility remains weak. History can be deep while the future remains unsuitable. When you love potential, you may turn incompatibility into a problem that must be solved. You work harder to make yourself easier to love. You become less expressive so they do not feel pressured. You reduce your needs so they can meet them. You delay your plans to give them more time. You become flexible in every direction while they remain exactly where they are. Eventually, the person you believed would change is not the only imagined person in the relationship. You also begin creating a future version of yourself who will need less, feel less, and tolerate more. You believe that if you become patient enough, calm enough, or understanding enough, the relationship will stop hurting. Instead of asking whether the situation is right for you, you keep changing yourself to fit inside it. This is how loving someone's potential can make you abandon your own reality. Your reality includes your needs, your limits, your dreams, your loneliness, and the effect the relationship has on your body and mind. It includes the nights you cannot sleep, the conversations you replay, the plans you postpone, and the energy you spend trying to understand what should not require constant explanation. You may become so focused on their future growth that you stop noticing your present decline. They may appear full of possibility while you become increasingly exhausted. You encourage them to heal while your own wounds deepen. You believe in their future while losing faith in your own. You wait for them to become ready while your life quietly moves forward without you. Time deserves honest attention. Love can make time feel endless, especially when hope is strong. You may believe another year will not matter if it leads to the relationship you want. But years are not empty spaces. They are pieces of your life. Every year spent waiting is a year shaped by uncertainty, unmet needs, and delayed choices. This does not mean every relationship must change quickly. People need time to learn, heal, and mature. Healthy growth can be slow. The important difference is whether movement is visible. Slow progress still contains progress. There is greater honesty, deeper effort, more responsibility, and fewer repeated wounds. Waiting becomes harmful when nothing meaningful changes except the explanation for why you should keep waiting. You can ask yourself a simple question. If nothing changed, could I accept this relationship exactly as it is? Remove the future promises. Remove the version of them you hope will appear. Remove the belief that your love will inspire transformation. Look only at the relationship you have now. Could you live inside this pattern for another year, 5 years, or 10 years? Your answer may reveal what hope has been hiding. If the relationship is only acceptable because you believe it will eventually become different, then you are not truly choosing the present relationship. You are enduring it as the price of admission to an imagined future. Buddhist wisdom asks you to return to the present because the present is the only place where life can be lived. The past is memory. The future is thought. Both can offer guidance, but neither should replace what is happening now. When your emotional life is built around a future that depends on someone else changing, your peace is always delayed. You may say, I will feel safe when they become consistent. You may say, I will relax when they finally commit. You may believe you will speak freely when they learn to listen. You keep placing your happiness after their transformation. Until then, you survive on possibility. This is a form of craving because your peace depends on obtaining a version of the person that does not yet exist. Craving says the present is not enough, but the future will complete you. It creates tension between what is and what you demand life become. The greater the gap, the greater the suffering. Acceptance does not mean you approve of everything. It means you stop arguing with the facts. If someone is inconsistent, acceptance says, this person is inconsistent right now. It does not add, but they will probably change soon. If someone avoids emotional responsibility, acceptance recognizes that pattern. It does not use their potential to soften the truth. Once you accept reality, you can make a clear choice. You may choose to stay because the relationship as it exists still aligns with your values and well-being. You may choose to stay temporarily while observing genuine change, or you may decide that the pattern costs too much. The decision becomes yours rather than something controlled by hope. Seeing reality can feel like betraying the person. You may fear that accepting their limitations means you no longer believe in them, but belief should not require denial. You can believe they are capable of growth without building your life around whether they choose it. You can recognize their strengths without ignoring their behavior. You can hope they heal while refusing to wait indefinitely. This distinction creates freedom. Their potential belongs to them. Your life belongs to you. You do not need to become the guardian of everything they could become. You do not need to hold their future for them while they avoid it. If they are meant to grow, they must take responsibility for that journey. Love becomes healthier when it responds to the person who exists rather than the person who might exist. This does not mean reducing someone to their worst behavior. Everyone is more complex than their mistakes. It means considering the whole pattern instead of choosing only the pieces that support your dream. The whole pattern includes their good qualities, their pain, their intentions, their choices, their effort, and the effect they have on you. It includes the laughter and the silence. It includes the tenderness and the absence. It includes what they promise and what they practice. Clear love holds all of it. When you hold the whole truth, you may discover that you were not in love only with the person. You were in love with the story you created around them. Perhaps they represented healing after a difficult past. Maybe being chosen by them felt like proof that you were valuable. Perhaps the relationship gave you a mission and made you feel needed. The future you pictured may have carried needs that existed long before you met them. This is not something to feel ashamed about. The mind creates stories because stories provide meaning. They help us connect events and imagine possibility, but stories can become dangerous when we refuse to revise them after reality changes. A wise mind is willing to let the story end when the facts no longer support it. You may have imagined that your patience would teach them trust. You may have pictured them one day thanking you for never leaving. You may have believed your love would reach the wounded part they kept hidden. These stories can feel beautiful because they make you the person who stayed long enough to create a miracle. But love is not proven by how long you remain inside disappointment. You are not more loving because you keep believing after all evidence has disappeared. Sometimes love is shown by allowing another person to be exactly who they choose to be, without forcing your hopes onto them. This means stopping the silent demand that they fulfill the potential you see. Even positive expectations can become pressure. You may love a future version of them so strongly that the real person constantly feels insufficient. You are disappointed because they are not becoming who you imagined, while they may never have truly chosen that path. Seeing this can create compassion for both people. You are suffering because reality does not match your hope. They may be struggling beneath the weight of expectations they cannot or do not want to meet. Releasing potential allows both of you to stand in truth. You can finally ask whether the people you are today can create something healthy together. It also helps you distinguish encouragement from rescue. Encouragement supports someone who is already walking. Rescue carries someone who refuses to move. Encouragement respects their responsibility. Rescue slowly takes it over. When you love potential, you may keep pulling them toward a life they are not choosing, then feel confused when they resist or return to old habits. No matter how clearly you see the road, you cannot walk it for them. You can point toward honesty, healing, maturity, and responsibility. You can support sincere effort, but you cannot create desire inside another person. You cannot make them value what they repeatedly neglect. Your task is not to prove that your vision of them was correct. Your task is to remain awake to what your life is becoming. Are you becoming more peaceful, honest, confident, and free? Or are you becoming more anxious, doubtful, quiet, and emotionally dependent? A relationship is not only revealed by what you feel for someone, it is also revealed by who you become while loving them. If loving them requires you to live in constant anticipation, you are not fully living. You are waiting at the door of a future that may never open. Each promise sounds like movement behind the door. Each affectionate moment makes you believe the handle is turning. Yet you remain outside, organizing your life around the possibility of being invited in. There comes a time when you must stop listening for movement and look at where you are standing. You may discover that the door has been closed for a long time. The person on the other side may not be preparing to open it. You may have been keeping yourself there through hope alone. Stepping away does not mean you were wrong to see goodness in them. The goodness may be real. Their potential may also be real, but potential is not a relationship. Possibility cannot hold you when you are afraid. A future version cannot communicate with you today. The person they may become cannot repair what the person they are continues to break. You need to relate to what is available now. This is not impatience, it is presence. It is the decision to stop sacrificing actual years for imagined moments. It is recognizing that your heart deserves more than a promise of love that is always approaching but never arriving. When you begin releasing their potential, grief may surface. You may mourn the home you pictured, the conversations you hoped to have, and the version of them who existed so clearly in your mind. This grief can feel confusing because you are mourning something that never fully happened. Yet unrealized futures can carry real emotional weight. Let yourself grieve without returning to illusion. Grief is not evidence that you should keep waiting. It is evidence that the dream mattered to you. You can honor that dream while admitting that it was not becoming real. You can feel sadness without turning sadness into another reason to stay. As the dream loosens, the present may appear emptier for a while, but it will also become more honest. You will no longer need to search every action for hidden signs of change. You will stop turning ordinary kindness into evidence of transformation. You will stop reading promises as if they were completed actions. Your mind will have less to defend. This honesty can restore energy you did not realize you were losing. Maintaining hope against repeated disappointment requires enormous effort. You must constantly explain contradictions, lower expectations, renew faith, and silence doubt. When you accept reality, that effort becomes available for your own life. You can begin asking different questions. Instead of asking when they will become ready, ask what you are ready to choose. Instead of asking whether they will finally see your value, ask whether you are living as if you know your value. Instead of asking how to help them reach their potential, ask what parts of your own potential have been neglected while you waited. Perhaps you have dreams that require the energy you have been spending on them. Perhaps there are places you want to visit, friendships you want to rebuild, skills you want to develop, or work that gives your life meaning. Your future also deserves attention. It should not remain frozen while another person decides whether they want to meet you. This is not a call to become impatient with human weakness. It is a call to stop making weakness sacred. People are allowed to struggle. They are allowed to be unfinished. But being unfinished does not give them ownership of your time. Their right to grow slowly does not create a duty for you to wait endlessly. You can love someone deeply and still decide that their journey is no longer yours to organize your life around. You can say, "I see what you could become, but I must respond to who you are choosing to be." That sentence is not cruel. It respects their freedom and protects your own. Buddhist non-attachment teaches you to love without gripping. Gripping says, "You must become the person I believe you can be, because I have built my happiness around that future." Non-attachment says, "I care about you, but I will not demand that you become different so my life can begin." This kind of love is quieter. It does not chase proof. It does not keep rewriting reality. It does not transform every small sign into a promise. It allows truth to remain truth, even when truth hurts. And when you finally see clearly, you may understand that releasing their potential is not giving up on them. It is giving up the illusion that your hope controls their choices. It is returning responsibility to the person who must carry it. It is choosing not to spend your life loving a future version while the present version continues to leave you unseen. You are allowed to appreciate who someone might become without waiting beside them until they arrive. You are allowed to remember their best moments without using those moments to erase the pattern. You are allowed to wish them growth from a distance. Most of all, you are allowed to choose a life that does not depend on another person becoming someone they have repeatedly refused to be. The person you hoped for may one day appear, or they may never appear at all. That is their path. Your path begins when you stop abandoning the life in front of you for a future that exists only in your mind. Clear seeing may break the dream, but it also ends the waiting. And sometimes, the moment you stop loving what could be is the moment you finally become free to meet what truly is. And once you stop waiting for someone to become the person you hoped for, an even deeper question appears. Were you truly holding on because you loved them, or because you needed them to choose you so you could finally feel worthy? Sometimes the pain of unreturned love is not only about missing affection, it is about what rejection seems to say about you. When someone does not choose you, you may hear a silent message beneath their decision. You may believe it means you were not attractive enough, patient enough, interesting enough, calm enough, or lovable enough. Their distance becomes more than their choice. It becomes a judgment you carry against yourself. This is why some people remain attached long after the relationship has stopped bringing peace. They are no longer only trying to build love. They are trying to change the meaning of rejection. They believe that if the person finally chooses them, all the waiting will be justified. The loneliness will no longer feel humiliating. The sacrifices will appear meaningful. The doubt they carried about themselves will finally become quiet. Being chosen begins to feel like proof. If this person wants you, then you must be worthy. If they return, then you must not have been foolish. If they commit, then you must have been lovable all along. Your heart begins placing its value inside another person's decision, and that is where love quietly becomes craving. Craving does not always look like greed or desperate hunger. It can look like devotion. It can sound like hope. It may appear as patience, loyalty, forgiveness, or deep emotional commitment. Yet beneath these beautiful words, there may be a frightened belief saying, "I need this person to choose me so I can feel complete." Buddhist wisdom teaches that craving creates suffering because it makes peace depend on obtaining something outside you. You do not simply prefer a certain outcome. You begin believing you cannot be okay without it. Your mind becomes fixed on what must happen before you can relax. Until the person chooses you, life feels unfinished. This craving can make one person seem more important than they truly are. They become the judge of your value, even though they may not understand themselves clearly. Their attention feels like a reward. Their silence feels like punishment. Their uncertainty controls your emotions. A message from them can change your entire day, while their absence can make everything feel empty. You may begin checking your phone more often. You replay conversations and search for hidden meaning. You wonder whether you said too much or too little. You study the tone of every reply. You notice how quickly they respond, how warmly they speak, and whether their behavior has changed. Your mind becomes a room in which they are always present, even when they are physically absent. This is not because you are weak. It is because craving narrows attention. When the mind believes something is necessary for safety or worth, it begins watching that thing closely. It treats the person's behavior like important information about your survival. Small changes feel enormous because your identity has become attached to the outcome. You may think you are trying to understand them, but often you are trying to understand what their behavior says about you. When they pull away, you ask what you did wrong. When they become warm again, you feel relief. When they choose someone else, you compare yourself. Their actions become a mirror, but it is a distorted mirror. It reflects their fears, preferences, wounds, timing, and limitations, yet you see only your supposed failure. Another person's inability to love you does not provide an accurate measure of your worth. People choose partners for countless reasons. Some choose what feels familiar, even when it is unhealthy. Some avoid people who offer genuine closeness because intimacy frightens them. Some are drawn to confusion because peace feels unfamiliar. Others are simply not emotionally ready to recognize what you bring. Their choice may reveal something about compatibility, but it does not reveal your value as a human being. A person can fail to appreciate something precious without making it less precious. Someone can overlook your care, misunderstand your heart, or prefer a different path. None of this removes what is already true about you. Yet when the need to be chosen becomes strong, this truth is difficult to feel. You may know it in your mind while your emotions still search for confirmation. You tell yourself you are worthy, but you secretly wait for their attention to make those words believable. You repeat affirmations, yet one cold response can undo them. This happens because self-worth cannot become stable when it depends on another person's changing behavior. Their feelings may shift from day to day. Their life may become complicated. Their fears may return. Their attention may move elsewhere. If your value rises and falls with their choices, you will always live on uncertain ground. The need to be chosen may have started long before this person entered your life. Perhaps you grew up feeling that love had to be earned. You may have received affection when you behaved well, stayed quiet, achieved something, or took care of other people. You learned that acceptance came after performance. Instead of feeling loved for existing, you learned to work for emotional security. Later, a distant person can awaken this old pattern. Their lack of affection feels familiar, and your mind knows exactly what to do. You try harder. You become more helpful. You study what they like. You avoid upsetting them. You give without being asked. You believe that enough effort will eventually produce the love you have been waiting for. This is not always a conscious plan. It may feel natural. You may call yourself generous, but your giving carries a hidden question. Is this enough for you to choose me now? You offer comfort, time, money, attention, forgiveness, and endless understanding. Each gift contains hope. When nothing changes, you give more because you assume your previous effort was not sufficient. Love, freely given, does not keep asking whether it has earned acceptance. Craving gives with an invisible contract. It says, I will do all of this, and one day you will finally see that I am the person you should choose. The other person may never have agreed to this contract, but your heart still feels betrayed when the expected reward does not arrive. You may then become resentful. You remember everything you sacrificed and wonder how they could fail to appreciate it. You compare your loyalty with their distance. You feel that after all you have done, they should love you. This pain is understandable, but it reveals that your giving was connected to an outcome. Buddhist teachings do not condemn desire. It is natural to want love, closeness, and companionship. Suffering deepens when desire becomes attachment to one exact result. You stop saying, I would like to share love with this person, and begin saying inside yourself, it must be this person, and they must choose me. The word must creates the prison. It refuses to allow life to unfold differently. It rejects every path that does not include the person you want. You may have friends, opportunities, talents, dreams, and other forms of love, but they become difficult to see because your attention remains fixed on one closed door. Craving tells you that only what is unavailable can satisfy you. The more distant the person becomes, the more valuable their affection may seem. If they chose you easily, perhaps their love would feel ordinary. Because they remain uncertain, their acceptance begins to look like a rare prize. This is why some people become less interested when love is freely available, but deeply attached when love is withheld. The struggle itself creates intensity. Anxiety is mistaken for passion. Uncertainty is mistaken for depth. The repeated movement between hope and disappointment produces strong emotions, and strong emotions are mistaken for proof of a special connection. But emotional intensity is not always intimacy. Intimacy creates safety, honesty, and mutual presence. Intensity can exist inside confusion, distance, and fear. You may think you have found a once-in-a-lifetime love when you have actually become trapped in a cycle of anticipation and relief. When they move closer, your body relaxes. When they pull away, fear rises again. Their return feels powerful because it temporarily ends the suffering their absence created. This relief may be experienced as love, even though the deeper pattern remains unchanged. The need to be chosen can also make competition feel personal. If they show interest in someone else, you may begin comparing everything. You examine appearance, personality, success, age, confidence, or social status. You search for the quality that made the other person worthy and you unworthy. Comparison promises an explanation, but it usually creates more pain. There will always be someone who appears more attractive, successful, outgoing, calm, or exciting. If worth depends on being better than everyone who could be chosen instead, peace becomes impossible. Love is not a contest in which the most valuable person always wins. Human attraction is not a perfect system of justice. People do not always choose the kindest, wisest, or most compatible person. They choose according to their awareness, habits, readiness, desires, and emotional patterns. Sometimes they make healthy choices. Sometimes they repeat their deepest wounds. You do not become less because someone preferred someone else. Their preference is not a universal ranking. It is one human decision made from one limited point of view. Yet craving turns that decision into a final verdict. This is why rejection can feel like shame. Sadness says, "I wanted this and I did not receive it." Shame says, "I did not receive it because something is wrong with me." Sadness can move through you. Shame attacks your identity. When shame takes control, you may try to fix yourself so the person will reconsider. You change your appearance, interests, communication style, or boundaries. You become less available because you hope distance will make them chase you. Or you become more available because you fear they will forget you. Every change is organized around influencing their choice. Growth is valuable when it brings you closer to truth. It becomes self-abandonment when it is used to earn one person's acceptance. There is nothing wrong with improving your communication or becoming healthier, but ask who the growth is for. Are you becoming more fully yourself, or are you designing a version of yourself that you hope they will finally want? A life built around being chosen can slowly lose its natural direction. You no longer ask what you enjoy, believe, or need. You ask what will make you more desirable to them. You may laugh at things you do not find funny. You may agree with views you do not share. You may hide your hopes because they seem too serious. You may pretend to need less because you fear your needs will push them away. Then, even if they finally choose you, you face another problem. They may be choosing the person you performed rather than the person you are. You receive the acceptance you wanted, but you cannot rest inside it because you know how much of yourself you hid to receive it. This is one reason craving never creates lasting satisfaction. It promises that obtaining the desired person will end insecurity. But when insecurity created the chase, it usually remains after the chase succeeds. You may then fear losing what you worked so hard to gain. You become watchful inside the relationship. You worry that someone else will attract them. You question whether they truly love you. You continue proving your value because being chosen once does not feel like enough. You need to be chosen again each day. The craving has changed form, but it has not disappeared. Before the relationship, you feared they would never choose you. Afterward, you fear they may stop choosing you. Peace remains dependent on their behavior. Buddhist wisdom points toward another foundation. Your worth must become something you recognize before anyone confirms it. This does not mean you will never feel hurt by rejection. It means rejection will not erase your identity. You can grieve the loss without turning the loss into a statement about your right to be loved. Worth is not something another person gives you. It is not a prize placed in your hands after enough effort. You were not born empty, waiting for someone's approval to make you valuable. Your humanity already includes dignity. You have thoughts, fears, memories, abilities, and a capacity for awareness. You can learn, care, create, and begin again. These qualities do not appear only after someone chooses you. The difficulty is that this truth may feel too quiet compared with romantic attention. Being chosen produces a strong emotional moment. Inner worth grows slowly through the way you treat yourself. It is built when you keep promises to yourself, speak honestly, protect your limits, and stop returning to situations that teach you to feel small. Self-worth becomes real through practice. Each time you listen to your own discomfort, you tell yourself that your experience matters. Each time you refuse disrespect, you confirm that your dignity is not negotiable. Each time you stop chasing someone who repeatedly withdraws, you teach your heart that it does not need to beg for a place. This does not require becoming proud or emotionally distant. You can remain open to love. You can desire partnership. You can feel disappointed when someone does not return your feelings. The difference is that you no longer hand them the power to define you. You begin separating preference from truth. Their preference may be that they do not want a relationship with you. The truth is not that you are unlovable. Their decision may close one possibility. It does not close every possibility your life contains. Craving makes one person look like the source of all future happiness. Awareness returns them to their true size. They are one person among billions, with strengths, flaws, wounds, and limitations. They may be important to you, but they are not the owner of your future. This shift can feel painful because it removes the special power you gave them. You may have treated their attention as if it came from a higher authority. A kind message felt like a blessing. A cold response felt like condemnation. Now you begin seeing that they are simply human. They may not know what they want. They may be unable to recognize healthy love. They may be honest about not choosing you, even if that honesty hurts. Whatever the reason, their choice belongs to them. Your response belongs to you. You can respond by chasing, proving, waiting, and comparing. Or you can allow the pain to be present without turning it into a mission. You can say, "I wanted to be chosen, and I was not. This hurts, but it does not reduce me." That sentence may seem simple, but it contains freedom. It allows sadness without shame. It respects reality without attacking your identity. It does not pretend rejection feels good. It only refuses to build a permanent belief from a painful event. Mindfulness helps you observe the craving when it rises. You may feel the urge to send another message, check their page, ask a friend about them, or create a reason to appear in their life. Before acting, pause and notice what you are truly seeking. Are you seeking communication, or are you seeking proof that you still matter? Are you trying to express love, or are you trying to relieve anxiety? Are you contacting them because something honest needs to be said, or because silence is making you feel invisible? When you identify the deeper need, you can care for it more wisely. If you feel invisible, their reply may provide only temporary relief. The deeper work is learning to see yourself. If you feel unworthy, another attempt to win them may strengthen the belief that worth must be earned. The wiser response may be to stay with the discomfort and refuse to obey it. This is how craving weakens, not by force, but by awareness. You notice the urge without immediately feeding it. You allow the feeling to rise, remain, and pass. Each time you do this, you discover that discomfort is survivable. You do not need their attention to escape every painful emotion. The mind may protest. It may tell you that this is your last chance. It may create stories in which they forget you forever if you do not act now. Craving always speaks with urgency. It says something must happen immediately. Wisdom is quieter. It says you do not need to chase what continually runs away. It reminds you that what is truly mutual does not require endless persuasion. It tells you that pausing will not destroy healthy love, but it may expose unhealthy attachment. As the urgency fades, you may begin seeing how much of your life was organized around being chosen. You may notice the clothes you wore for their approval, the plans you changed for their availability, and the opinions you softened to remain acceptable. This awareness can bring grief, but it can also return choice to you. You can ask what you would do if you were no longer trying to impress them. What would you wear? Where would you go? Whom would you call? What truth would you speak? What dream would you continue? These questions lead you back toward the self that craving pushed aside. You may also discover that being chosen was connected to revenge against the past. Perhaps someone once rejected, ignored, or abandoned you. Now you want a different person to choose you, so the old wound can finally be corrected. You are not only seeking present love, you are asking the present to rewrite history. But no new relationship can change what already happened. It can offer a different experience, but it cannot erase the pain that shaped you. When you demand that someone heal an old wound by choosing you, the relationship carries a burden it cannot safely hold. Healing begins when you stop asking another person to prove that everyone who rejected you was wrong. Their love cannot travel backward and protect the younger version of you. But your awareness can meet that version now. You can recognize the child, teenager, or younger adult who felt overlooked. You can understand why being chosen became so important. Instead of judging your need, you can offer compassion to the pain beneath it. You can say, "I understand why you want this so badly. You believe it will make you safe, but we do not have to abandon ourselves to receive love." This inner care is not a quick solution. Old beliefs may return. You may still feel drawn to emotionally unavailable people. Their distance may still awaken the urge to prove yourself. The difference is that you begin recognizing the pattern before it controls your choices. You notice when attraction becomes a challenge. You notice when someone's unavailability makes them more desirable. You notice when your interest grows because they are difficult to reach. Instead of calling this destiny, you become curious about what the struggle is awakening inside you. Healthy love does not require you to defeat another person's resistance. It does not make you compete with their past, their fear, or other people for basic recognition. It may require patience and honest work, but both people must be moving toward each other. When only one person moves, the relationship becomes pursuit. Pursuit can feel meaningful because it keeps you active. You are always doing something, planning something, hoping for something. Letting go feels frightening because it leaves you without a task. Without the task of winning them, you may have to face yourself. You may have to feel loneliness without using pursuit to escape it. You may have to build a life that does not depend on someone else finally opening their heart. This can be difficult, but it is also where freedom begins. The need to be chosen often loses power when your life becomes larger. When you have meaningful work, honest friendships, spiritual practice, creativity, rest, and personal direction, one person's decision no longer fills the whole sky. It may still hurt, but it does not darken everything. This is not distraction, it is balance. You are remembering that romantic love is one part of life, not the source of all meaning. You can receive love through friendship, family, community, service, nature, learning, and the relationship you build with your own mind. No single person can carry every need inside you. When you expect one person's choice to confirm your entire worth, you give them an impossible role. They become responsible for healing loneliness, proving beauty, creating safety and giving life meaning. Even a loving person cannot hold that weight forever. A healthy relationship is not two incomplete people asking each other to become proof. It is two people meeting with enough inner stability to give and receive without constant fear. They still need each other, but need does not become desperation. They value the relationship without making it the only reason they feel valuable. This is what non-attachment offers. It does not ask you to stop caring whether someone chooses you. It asks you to stop treating their choice as the final answer to who you are. You can say, "I hope you choose me, but I will not destroy myself if you do not." There is strength in that position because it allows love to remain voluntary. You do not manipulate, overgive, or perform. You allow the person to choose freely, and you allow yourself to respond freely. You are no longer trying to force an answer that protects your ego. Sometimes the answer will be no. Sometimes it will be uncertain. Sometimes a person will keep you close enough to receive your care, but never close enough to offer commitment. When your worth is stable, you can recognize that uncertainty is also information. You do not have to wait forever for a clear rejection. Repeated confusion can become an answer. Endless hesitation can reveal a lack of readiness. A person who wants the benefits of your love without choosing the responsibility of loving you is still making a choice. You are allowed to choose yourself in response. Choosing yourself does not mean declaring that you are better than them. It means refusing to remain in a position where your peace depends on their indecision. It means taking your heart out of the waiting room. At first, this may feel like losing. The ego wanted victory. It wanted the person to return, admit your value, and regret not choosing you sooner. But freedom is greater than victory. Victory still keeps your attention fixed on them. Freedom allows you to walk away without needing them to understand what they lost. You may never receive the apology, explanation, or recognition you hoped for. They may never see you as clearly as you wanted. Your worth must not remain trapped inside their blindness. A person does not have to understand your value for it to exist. The strongest shift happens when you stop asking, "Why was I not enough for them?" and begin asking, "Why did I believe their choice could make me enough?" The first question keeps you examining yourself through their eyes. The second returns you to your own awareness. You were always enough to deserve honesty, respect, and care. Being enough does not mean every person must love you. It means another person's inability or unwillingness to love you does not remove your dignity. Worthiness does not guarantee a certain outcome. It gives you the strength to survive outcomes you did not want. That is the freedom Buddhist wisdom points toward. Peace does not come from controlling who chooses you. It comes from releasing the belief that you need their choice to become whole. You can still love. You can still hope. You can still feel the ache of being unchosen. But beneath that ache, something steadier can remain. You know that your life has value before anyone enters it. You know that rejection closes a door without closing your future. You know that losing someone's attention does not mean losing yourself. And when this truth becomes part of how you live, love changes. You no longer give to earn a place. You no longer forgive to prove your devotion. You no longer wait to show that you are worthy of being kept. You offer your heart where it can be received, respected, and returned. The person who does not choose you may still matter. The memories may still be tender. But they no longer sit on the throne of your identity. Their decision becomes one event in your life, not the definition of your life. You stop begging a closed hand to hold you. You stop asking a distant heart to confirm that you are lovable. You stop turning another person's uncertainty into a lifelong question about yourself. Your worth does not rise when someone chooses you, and it does not fall when they walk away. It remains beneath every changing opinion, every rejection, and every ending. The moment you understand this, being chosen becomes something beautiful you may receive, not something you must obtain in order to exist. And that is when craving begins to loosen. You no longer chase love as proof. You become able to meet love as a gift. You stop asking another person to complete your value, and you begin standing in the value that was already yours. And once you stop asking another person to choose you so you can feel worthy, another painful truth begins to rise. Sometimes the deepest damage does not come from what they did. It comes from how many times you had to explain why it hurt, until you slowly began wondering whether your pain was real at all. At first, you may speak honestly. You tell them that their silence made you feel forgotten. You explain that their inconsistency left you confused. You say that their words were painful, that their distance affected you, or that their actions made you feel unimportant. You are not trying to start a fight. You are trying to help them understand what is happening inside you. You believe that if you explain yourself clearly enough, they will finally see the pain they have caused. You choose your words carefully. You wait for the right moment. You avoid sounding angry. You soften your voice so they will not feel attacked. You describe the situation from different angles, hoping one explanation will reach the part of them that the others could not reach. But instead of listening, they dismiss you. They tell you that you are overreacting. They say you are too sensitive. They insist that you misunderstood them. They focus on the way you spoke rather than what you were trying to say. They may accuse you of creating problems, ruining the mood, or making everything more serious than it needs to be. You leave the conversation feeling more confused than when you entered it. Your pain has not disappeared, but now another feeling has been added to it. You begin wondering whether you were wrong to bring it up. You question whether your words were fair. You replay the conversation and search for the exact moment you may have expressed yourself badly. The next time something hurts, you try even harder to explain it correctly. You become calmer, softer, and more detailed. You prepare your sentences in your mind before speaking. You remove any word that might sound accusing. You make sure to mention that you understand their side. You take responsibility for your own feelings before asking them to take responsibility for their behavior. Still, they do not listen. They may become defensive before you finish speaking. They may interrupt you, change the subject, or bring up your past mistakes. They may say they are tired of having the same conversation. They may tell you that nothing they do is ever enough, even though you are asking for one simple change. They may become silent until you feel guilty for speaking at all. Over time, you begin to lose confidence in your own experience. You no longer trust the first feeling that rises inside you. When something hurts, you do not immediately ask what happened. You ask whether you are allowed to feel hurt. Instead of listening to yourself, you begin preparing a case. You gather evidence. You remember dates, messages, promises, and exact words. You feel that you must prove every emotion before it can be taken seriously. You believe you need enough examples, enough details, and enough logical support to justify something your heart already knows. This is one of the quiet ways self-trust begins to disappear. You stop believing your direct experience is enough. You feel that pain is only valid after another person agrees with it. Until they admit what happened, you remain uncertain. Their denial becomes stronger than your own awareness. Buddhist mindfulness offers a different path. It invites you to return to what you directly experience before the mind begins arguing with it. If sadness is present, mindfulness notices sadness. If your chest feels tight, it notices the tightness. If fear rises before you speak, it notices fear. It does not immediately ask whether the feeling is reasonable enough to be accepted by someone else. Mindfulness does not say every thought you have is completely true. It does not tell you that every emotional reaction gives a perfect picture of reality. It simply teaches that what you are feeling is happening, and therefore it deserves attention. There is an important difference between saying, "My interpretation must be correct," and saying, "My pain is real." You may sometimes misunderstand another person's intention. You may not know exactly why they acted as they did, but you can still recognize the effect their behavior had on you. Perhaps they did not intend to make you feel ignored. That does not mean you did not feel ignored. Perhaps they did not mean to embarrass you. That does not erase the embarrassment. Perhaps they did not realize their silence would create fear. Their lack of intention does not remove the experience that occurred inside you. Healthy communication allows both truths to exist. One person can say, "I did not mean to hurt you," while also saying, "I understand that you were hurt." Intention and effect do not have to become enemies. A mature person does not need to see themselves as cruel before they can care about the pain they caused. A dismissive person often treats your pain like an accusation they must defeat. They believe that acknowledging your feelings means admitting they are entirely bad or wrong. Instead of becoming curious, they become defensive. They protect their image by arguing against your experience. You may then find yourself spending more time comforting them than addressing what happened to you. You say you know they are not a bad person. You explain that you are not attacking them. You reassure them that you still care. The conversation that began with your hurt becomes another moment in which their emotions receive more attention than yours. After many conversations like this, you may learn that telling the truth creates more pain than remaining silent. You begin hiding what you feel to avoid the confusion that follows. You say you are fine when you are not. You laugh at comments that wound you. You pretend not to notice their distance. You lower your eyes, change the subject, and carry the feeling alone. Silence may create temporary peace between you, but it creates conflict within you. One part knows that something is wrong. Another part says you should not make trouble. One part wants to speak. Another remembers what happened the last time you tried. You become divided against yourself. This inner division can be exhausting. You are not only dealing with the original pain, you are also fighting your own reaction to it. You feel sadness, then criticize yourself for feeling sad. You feel anger, then become ashamed of the anger. You feel disappointed, then tell yourself you expected too much. The mind begins performing the dismissal before the other person even has the chance. Their voice becomes an inner voice. You hear their words inside your head. You are too sensitive. You always make things difficult. You are never satisfied. You are creating a problem where there is none. Eventually, you may not need them to deny your pain because you have learned to deny it for them. This is how repeated emotional dismissal can shape your relationship with yourself. You become suspicious of your feelings. You treat every emotional response as a possible mistake. You no longer ask what the feeling may be showing you. You ask how quickly you can make it disappear. But emotions are not problems that must always be removed. They are signals. They reveal that something has touched your mind, your memories, your needs, or your sense of safety. The signal may need careful understanding, but silencing it does not create wisdom. If a warning light appears in a car, covering the light does not repair the engine. In the same way, hiding pain does not resolve what caused it. You may continue functioning for a while, but the deeper issue remains. The body remembers what the mouth refuses to say. You may notice this in small ways. Your shoulders become tense around the person. Your stomach tightens when their name appears on your phone. You feel tired after every conversation. You prepare yourself before asking an ordinary question. You become unusually alert to changes in their voice, expression, or mood. The body often recognizes emotional danger before the mind is willing to accept it. It notices that speaking honestly is unsafe. It remembers how quickly care can turn into blame. It prepares for conflict even during calm moments. Mindfulness encourages you to listen to these responses without immediately judging them. You can pause and ask, what is happening in me right now? Not, what should I be feeling? Not, what would they say about this? Simply, what is present? Perhaps there is fear. Perhaps there is grief. Perhaps there is resentment you have tried to hide because you believe loving people should never feel angry. Perhaps there is relief when they leave the room, and that relief frightens you because you do not want to admit what it may mean. Direct experience can be uncomfortable because it removes the explanations that keep you attached. You may realize that you are not calm around them, you are careful, you are not patient, you are afraid of the result of speaking, you are not at peace, you are emotionally tired. These truths may be difficult, but they are not your enemy. They are information. They show you the condition of your inner life. You do not have to make an immediate decision, but you do need to stop pretending that nothing is happening. Self-trust begins when you allow yourself to notice before you explain. You say, "That comment hurt me." You do not immediately add, "But perhaps I am being too sensitive." You say, "I feel lonely in this relationship." You do not instantly protect the other person with 10 reasons for their distance. There will be time to consider context. There will be time to examine whether old wounds are affecting your reaction. But first, the feeling must be allowed to exist. If you judge it before you understand it, you will never discover what it is trying to show you. Some people fear that trusting their feelings will make them unreasonable. They worry they will become controlled by emotion. But self-trust does not mean obeying every feeling without reflection. It means refusing to treat yourself as an unreliable witness before you have listened. You can feel angry without acting cruelly. You can feel afraid without assuming danger is certain. You can feel hurt without deciding that the other person intended harm. Emotions and actions are different. Mindfulness creates space between them. In that space, you can say, "This is what I feel. Let me understand it." You can breathe before reacting. You can observe the thoughts surrounding the emotion. You can decide what response matches your values. This is very different from emotional suppression. Suppression says, "I should not feel this." Mindfulness says, "This feeling is here. I will not let it control me, but I will not abandon it either." When you repeatedly explain pain to someone who refuses to care, you may believe the problem is your communication. You keep searching for better words. You read about relationships. You learn calm phrases and healthy methods. You choose perfect moments, yet no sentence can force empathy into someone who is committed to avoiding responsibility. Sometimes the issue is not that you have failed to explain. The issue is that they do not want to understand what understanding would require from them. If they acknowledge your pain, they may need to change. They may need to apologize, give more effort, or give up a behavior that benefits them. Dismissal protects them from that discomfort. By making the problem your sensitivity, they avoid examining their actions. By demanding more proof, they keep you busy defending yourself. By focusing on your tone, they escape the truth in your words. This does not mean tone never matters. You should still try to communicate with respect. Anger can make listening difficult. Cruel words can create new wounds. But imperfect expression does not cancel the truth beneath it. A person who genuinely cares may say, "I struggled with the way you spoke, but I still want to understand what hurt you." They do not use one emotional sentence to ignore the entire issue. They separate the message from the momentary mistake. Someone who wants to avoid responsibility may act as though your frustration proves that your pain has no value. They may push you until you become emotional, then point to your emotion as evidence that you are the problem. You can spend years trying to remain calm enough for such a person to respect your feelings. You may become almost emotionless during difficult conversations. Still, they may find another reason not to listen. At some point, you must ask whether you are truly trying to communicate or whether you are asking permission to believe yourself. You may already know what happened. You know the pattern has continued. You know how it affects you. You know that your needs have been stated, yet you keep returning to the conversation because you hope their agreement will give you the confidence to act. You want them to say, "Yes, I neglected you. Yes, your pain makes sense. Yes, you deserved better." Perhaps you believe you cannot leave, set a boundary, or change the relationship without this confession, but the person who benefited from your doubt may never give you the certainty you seek. Waiting for them to confirm your experience can keep you trapped. They do not have to agree that the situation is harmful before you are allowed to protect yourself. You do not need a shared conclusion before making a personal decision. Two people can understand the same relationship differently. They may genuinely believe they did nothing wrong. You may still recognize that the relationship is no longer healthy for you. This is not about punishing them. It is about accepting that your inner life is your responsibility. You must care for what is happening within you, even when another person refuses to see it. Buddhist teachings often return to personal observation. You are encouraged to look closely at the causes of suffering. What thoughts increase it? What actions maintain it? What attachments keep you returning to it? In this situation, the suffering may not come only from their dismissal. It may also come from your demand that they understand before you can trust yourself. Each failed conversation reopens the wound because you keep placing your truth in their hands. Release does not mean giving up all communication. It means recognizing when communication has reached its limit. You can explain yourself honestly once. You can clarify misunderstandings. You can listen to their view. But you do not have to spend your life translating pain for someone who repeatedly refuses to hear it. There is dignity in knowing when to stop explaining. Silence can become an act of self-respect when words have only been used against you. You are not silent because you have nothing to say. You are silent because you have already said what matters. This kind of silence is different from fearful silence. Fearful silence hides truth to preserve the relationship. Wise silence recognizes that truth has been offered and will not be received. It saves your energy for the decisions that must follow. When you stop explaining, you may feel guilty. You may worry that you did not try hard enough. You may think one more conversation could create change. But ask how many conversations have already occurred. Ask whether new words are likely to create a new heart. Sometimes repeating yourself does not make your message clearer. It only teaches the other person that they can delay change by keeping you in discussion. They promise to talk later. They ask for more examples. They debate small details. The relationship remains the same while the conversation continues. Your pain becomes a subject to analyze rather than a reality to address. You may spend hours discussing whether you should feel lonely instead of facing the fact that you do. You may debate whether their behavior technically counts as neglect while your heart remains empty. You may argue about which exact words were spoken while the larger pattern stays untouched. This is where direct experience becomes important. You do not need to win a definition. You need to notice the condition of your life. Are you able to speak honestly? Do you feel emotionally safe? Are your concerns treated with care? Does communication lead to understanding, or does it lead to deeper confusion? These questions bring you back from argument to reality. They help you see beyond individual incidents. A single disagreement may be resolved. A repeated pattern of dismissal reveals something more serious. When you trust yourself, you do not need to prove that every detail supports your interpretation. You can acknowledge uncertainty. You can say, "I may not remember every word exactly, but I know how this pattern has affected me." You can accept that memory is imperfect without allowing someone to erase the larger truth. People who continually dismiss you may demand impossible certainty. They ask for exact examples, then explain each example away. They say you should have spoken earlier then, criticize you when you speak. They ask what you need, then call your needs unreasonable. The goalposts keep moving. No amount of evidence feels sufficient because the issue is not lack of evidence. The issue is unwillingness to engage with what the evidence means. This can make you feel as though you are standing in a courtroom where you are both the wounded person and the lawyer trying to prove the wound exists. You become tired from building a case that should have begun with care. In a loving relationship, you should not need to prove pain beyond all doubt before the other person becomes concerned. Care begins with curiosity. A caring person may not immediately agree with your interpretation, but they will want to understand. They will notice your distress and treat it as meaningful. They may ask, "Can you tell me more?" rather than saying, "That makes no sense." They may say, "I see why that affected you," even if their intention was different. Most importantly, they will consider what can change. Words of understanding mean little if the same behavior continues. True acknowledgement becomes visible through action. If someone says they understand but repeatedly returns to the same hurtful pattern, their agreement may be only a way to end the conversation. Self-trust therefore includes observing what happens after the apology. Does the person remember what you shared? Do they become more careful? Do they take responsibility without needing reminders? Does the pattern slowly improve? You do not need perfection. Change may include mistakes, but sincere care leaves evidence. It creates movement. When no movement appears, you may need to trust the pattern more than the apology. This can feel harsh because words awaken hope, yet actions reveal what has truly been understood. Rebuilding self-trust after repeated dismissal takes time. You may have spent months or years ignoring your own signals. You cannot expect complete confidence to return in one moment. Begin with small acts of listening. When you feel tired, acknowledge the tiredness. When something feels uncomfortable, pause before forcing yourself to continue. When you do not want to answer immediately, give yourself time. When a conversation leaves you confused, write down what happened before another person's explanation changes your memory. Writing can help you return to your own perspective. You can record what was said, what you felt, and what you needed. Do not write to build a weapon against them. Write to remain connected to yourself. Later, when doubt appears, you can read your own words. You may notice that the same pattern has occurred many times. You may realize your feelings were consistent even when your explanations changed. Trusted friends can also help, but be careful not to replace one outside authority with another. Supportive people can offer perspective, yet the final goal is not to collect enough votes to prove your pain. It is to become able to hear guidance without abandoning your own awareness. A wise friend may help you see something you missed. They may point out where fear, jealousy, or an old wound affected your reaction. Self-trust does not reject correction. It allows you to consider feedback without immediately assuming everyone else understands you better than you understand yourself. You can be open and grounded at the same time. You can say, "Perhaps there is more for me to see, but I will not begin by declaring that my experience is false." This balanced attitude protects you from two extremes. One extreme is complete self-doubt, where everyone else becomes the authority over your feelings. The other is complete certainty, where you never question your interpretation. Mindfulness rests between them. It pays attention, remains curious, and refuses self-betrayal. As you practice this, you may notice anger rising toward the person who dismissed you. Anger can be part of rebuilding awareness. It may show that a boundary was crossed. Do not shame yourself for it, but do not let it become a reason to cause harm. Listen beneath the anger. It may be saying, "I mattered, and I was treated as though I did not." It may be protecting the part of you that remained silent for too long. When understood, anger can become clarity rather than destruction. You may also feel anger toward yourself for staying, apologizing, or doubting your own mind. Treat this anger carefully. You were trying to preserve love. You believed communication could create understanding. You were not foolish for hoping. The person you were then used the awareness they had. The person you are becoming can make a different choice. Healing does not require punishing your past self. It requires refusing to continue the same abandonment. Compassion for yourself means saying, I understand why I kept explaining. I wanted to be heard. I wanted the relationship to become safe, but I no longer need to disappear inside endless conversations. You may never receive the understanding you hoped for. This can be one of the hardest losses. Sometimes the relationship ends without the other person ever seeing the depth of what happened. They may continue telling a story in which you were difficult, dramatic, or unreasonable. You cannot control the story they carry. Trying to correct it may keep you emotionally tied to them. Your freedom begins when their misunderstanding no longer decides your direction. They may never admit that you were hurt. Your pain still occurred. They may never recognize the ways you tried. Your effort still existed. They may never understand why you changed or left. Your reasons do not disappear because they refuse to see them. This does not mean you should become attached to being right. It means you stop needing agreement before honoring your own limits. You can remain humble enough to know that you may not understand everything while still trusting what has been consistently revealed. There is peace in no longer defending every emotion. You begin allowing feelings to move through you without turning them into a debate. You feel sadness and offer it care. You feel disappointment and let it inform you. You feel fear and ask what safety requires. Your inner life becomes a place of listening rather than judgment. This is the heart of mindfulness. You become present with what is arising. You do not push it away because it is inconvenient. You do not hold it forever because it feels important. You notice it, understand it, and allow it to guide wise action. Pain does not always tell you to leave. Sometimes it tells you that an old wound needs healing. Sometimes it shows that a conversation is necessary. Sometimes it reveals that your expectations need to change. But when pain keeps returning from the same pattern, it may be asking you to stop arguing and start responding. The response may be a boundary. It may be distance. It may be ending a conversation when dismissal begins. It may be refusing to explain something for the 10th time. It may be accepting that a person cannot offer the emotional understanding you need. Whatever the response, let it come from clarity rather than revenge. You do not need to punish them for failing to understand. You need to stop punishing yourself by continuing to seek understanding where it is repeatedly denied. Your suffering deserves attention, even when another person calls it unreasonable. Your emotions deserve curiosity, even when someone finds them inconvenient. Your experience deserves a place in the relationship. When it is continually pushed aside, you are allowed to notice what that means. You are not asking to be treated as if every feeling is a command. You are asking not to be treated as though your inner world is meaningless. There is a great difference. A healthy bond makes room for two realities. It does not require one person to disappear so the other can remain comfortable. Both people can speak, listen, reflect, and grow. Neither person has to become the judge of whether the other is allowed to feel. When this balance is absent, repeated explanation will not create it by itself. There must be willingness on both sides. Without willingness, your words become another place where your energy is lost. So begin returning that energy to yourself. Instead of using it to create the perfect explanation, use it to notice what you need. Instead of repeating why something hurt, consider what action would protect you from being hurt in the same way again. Instead of waiting for acknowledgement, begin offering acknowledgement to yourself. Say, I know what I felt. Say, I know what this pattern has done to me. Say, I am willing to examine myself, but I will not automatically stand against myself. These words are not a declaration of perfection. They are a promise of inner loyalty. You may still doubt yourself sometimes. That is natural after being dismissed for so long. When doubt appears, do not panic. Ask whether it comes from honest reflection or from fear of another person's reaction. Honest reflection feels open and curious. Fearful doubt often feels urgent, ashamed, and desperate to erase your needs. Learn the difference slowly. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. You will discover that self-trust is not loud. It does not need to win every argument. It does not demand that everyone understand. It is the quiet knowledge that you will not abandon your own experience simply because someone else is uncomfortable with it. You can still apologize when you are wrong. You can change your mind when new truth appears. You can listen to criticism without collapsing. In fact, stable self-trust makes these things easier because correction no longer feels like destruction. When your worth is not dependent on always being right, you can honestly examine your actions. You can say, "I expressed this badly, but the pain beneath it was real." You can say, "My fear affected how I saw the situation, but something still needs attention." This is mature awareness. It avoids both denial and exaggeration. It does not make you perfect, it makes you present. And presence is what repeated dismissal tried to take from you. It pushed you away from your direct experience and into endless explanation. It taught you to see yourself through the eyes of someone who did not want to see you clearly. Now you can return. You can return to the feeling in your chest, the truth in your silence, and the wisdom in your discomfort. You can return to the part of yourself that knew something was wrong before the arguments began. You do not need another person's permission to care about what is happening within you. You do not need their agreement before taking your pain seriously. You do not need the perfect sentence before your suffering becomes worthy of attention. Sometimes the most healing words are not the ones you finally make them understand. They are the ones you stop needing to say. You have explained enough. You have defended enough. You have searched for the perfect language long enough. Now, the question is no longer whether they will acknowledge your pain. The question is whether you will. The moment you do, self-trust begins to return. Not all at once, but through every choice in which you stop arguing against yourself, through every boundary that says your inner life matters, through every pause in which you listen before you apologize for feeling. And as that trust grows, you no longer need to beg someone to confirm what you have lived. You can see clearly, feel honestly, and respond wisely. Their refusal to understand may still hurt, but it will no longer have the power to make you disappear from your own mind. And once you begin trusting your own pain again, another question becomes impossible to avoid. How long have you called your waiting patience when each passing season has required you to abandon another part of yourself? Patience is often described as one of the highest spiritual qualities. It helps you remain calm when life does not move according to your wishes. It protects you from acting out of anger, fear, or desperation. It teaches you that not everything must happen immediately, but patience becomes dangerous when it is separated from wisdom. Without wisdom, patience can become a beautiful word used to hide fear, delay necessary change, and keep you inside a relationship that is slowly destroying your peace. You may tell yourself that the person needs more time. They are still healing from the past. They are afraid of commitment. They are under pressure. They have never experienced healthy love. They do not know how to express their feelings. You believe that if you remain gentle and steady, they will eventually become ready to love you with the same care you have given them. At first, waiting may feel loving. You do not want to pressure them. You respect their struggles. You understand that growth does not happen overnight. You are willing to allow the relationship to develop slowly because you believe something meaningful is being built. But there is a difference between allowing healthy growth and waiting for someone who continues standing still. Healthy growth may be slow, but it can be seen. There is honest communication, increasing effort, deeper responsibility, and a willingness to face difficult patterns. Waiting becomes self-betrayal when time passes, but the same excuses remain. the same wounds return, and the same promises are repeatedly moved into the future. You may continue calling this patience because the alternative feels painful. If you admit that nothing is changing, you may have to make a decision. You may have to release the future you pictured. You may have to face the possibility that the person you love will never become ready for the relationship you need. Waiting allows you to delay that grief. Each new excuse creates another season of hope. You tell yourself that things will improve after their work becomes easier, after they resolve a family problem, after they recover from a difficult period, or after they feel more secure. When one difficulty ends and the relationship remains unchanged, another reason appears. There is always something standing between the present person and the loving person you believe they could become. Because life never becomes completely free from difficulty, their readiness is always postponed. You remain loyal to a future that keeps moving away from you. This waiting can become so normal that you stop noticing its cost. You measure the relationship by what may happen later instead of how you feel today. You stop asking whether your needs are being met because you have accepted that this is not the right time. You tell yourself your time will come once they are stronger, calmer, more secure, or less afraid. But your life is happening while you wait. Your emotional needs do not pause simply because another person is unprepared. Your desire for honesty, affection, safety, and mutual effort does not disappear because someone asks for more time. You may silence these needs for a while, but they continue living inside you. Every time you push them down, you send yourself a message. You say their comfort matters more than your truth. You say their timing is more important than your life. You say your needs can always be delayed because loving them requires you to remain understanding. This is how patience can quietly turn against you. It no longer helps you move through difficulty with wisdom. It trains you to accept a condition that keeps harming you. It teaches you to remain calm while your inner life becomes smaller. Buddhist patience is not the ability to suffer without end. It is not passive endurance. It does not ask you to sit beside pain and call your stillness spiritual strength. True patience helps you avoid reacting blindly, but it does not prevent wise action. You can be patient and still leave. You can remain calm and still set a firm boundary. You can understand that another person is struggling while deciding that you can no longer build your life around that struggle. Patience controls the quality of your response, not the direction of your decision. A patient person does not need to scream, threaten, or punish. They can look at reality with a steady mind and say, "I have waited, observed, spoken honestly, and allowed time. The pattern has not changed. I must now respond to what is true." This response may feel less dramatic than another argument, but it requires greater courage. Anger can temporarily carry you out of a painful situation. Clear patience asks you to act without hatred. You are not leaving to make them suffer. You are leaving because continued waiting requires you to suffer unnecessarily. Many people confuse patience with giving endless chances. They believe that a loving person never closes the door. Each apology leads to another opportunity. Each promise renews hope. Even after the same pattern returns, they say everyone deserves another chance. But a chance has meaning only when it is used. When someone receives repeated opportunities but makes no lasting effort, the problem may no longer be lack of opportunity. They may have learned that your limits are temporary and your consequences will eventually disappear. Endless chances can remove the reason to change. The person may know that after enough silence, affection, tears, or promises, you will return to the same arrangement. They may not make this choice consciously, but the pattern teaches them that your patience has no edge. Healthy patience has a boundary. It allows time while observing what the person does with that time. It does not keep extending itself simply because change would be uncomfortable. It asks whether the delay is producing growth or only protecting avoidance. Suppose someone tells you they are not ready to commit. Patience may mean allowing them time to think without demanding an immediate answer. Wisdom then asks what happens during that time. Are they becoming clearer and more honest, or are they enjoying your loyalty while refusing responsibility? Are they taking steps toward you, or only asking you not to leave? Waiting without clarity can keep you emotionally tied to someone who has made no promise to build a future with you. They may receive your affection, support, and presence while you receive uncertainty. Because they have not fully rejected you, hope remains alive. Because they have not fully chosen you, peace remains absent. You may believe you are being patient, but you are living in a suspended state. You cannot fully move forward with them, and you do not allow yourself to move forward without them. Your life becomes arranged around an answer they may never give. This uncertainty can consume more energy than a clear ending. A clear ending hurts deeply, but it gives grief a direction. Uncertainty keeps the mind searching. One day you believe the relationship is growing. The next day you fear it is ending. You remain emotionally alert because you do not know where you stand. Patience should not require permanent confusion. There may be periods when answers are not available, but a healthy relationship moves toward greater clarity. If time only creates more questions, your waiting may be protecting someone from making a decision at your expense. You are allowed to decide that their uncertainty does not need to become your lifestyle. Their right to take time does not create an obligation for you to wait without limit. They can remain unsure, and you can choose not to remain available during that uncertainty. This is not pressure. You are not forcing them to choose what you want. You are recognizing that you also have a choice. You can say, I respect that you are not ready, but I am ready for a relationship with mutual commitment. I will not continue living between hope and disappointment. That sentence respects both people. It allows them to follow their path and allows you to follow yours. Self-betrayal begins when you act as though only their timing matters. There may also be moments when you wait because the person says they need to heal. This can sound deeply reasonable. Everyone carries wounds, and healing deserves compassion. But healing cannot become an unlimited promise used to postpone responsibility. A person who is sincerely healing usually shows some movement. They may seek help, reflect on their behavior, communicate more honestly, and take responsibility when their wounds affect others. They do not simply announce that they are damaged and expect you to absorb the consequences forever. Healing is not a word. It is a practice. It includes discomfort, self-examination, changed behavior, and the willingness to repair harm. If someone repeatedly uses their pain to explain why they cannot love you well but does nothing to face that pain, you are not waiting for healing. You are waiting for willingness. Your love cannot create that willingness for them. You can encourage, support, and remain compassionate, but you cannot make another person turn toward the parts of themselves they prefer to avoid. If they are not choosing the work, your waiting does not become noble simply because the reason sounds painful. Sometimes you may believe your patience proves the depth of your love. You compare yourself with people who left them before. You want to be the one who stays. You believe that remaining through every difficult season will show them that love can be trusted. But staying is not always the same as loving. Sometimes staying protects a harmful pattern from consequence. Sometimes leaving is the first truthful response the relationship has received. Your departure may communicate what your repeated explanations could not. Love cannot survive where only one person is responsible for keeping it alive. You do not have to become another person who abandons them carelessly. You can leave with honesty, compassion, and respect. There is a difference between abandoning someone without explanation and ending a situation that is asking you to abandon yourself. You may fear that leaving while they are struggling makes you selfish, yet remaining does not always help them. Your presence may allow them to continue delaying change. They may rely on your patience as a soft place to avoid responsibility. They know you will understand, forgive, and wait. When you step away, they must face their own choices. Whether they learn from that experience is not yours to control. Your responsibility is not to remain in pain until another person becomes ready to grow. Self-betrayal often appears in small choices long before it becomes obvious. You cancel plans because they may suddenly want to see you. You keep your phone close because they might contact you. You avoid making future decisions because you do not know what they will choose. You tell friends that the relationship is complicated because you cannot explain why you are still waiting. Your life begins circling around possibility. You remain available for someone who is rarely available for you. Your time becomes flexible, while theirs remains protected. You adjust quickly when they need something, yet your needs are always discussed as though the timing is wrong. At first, these choices may seem harmless, but repeated over months or years, they shape your identity. You become the person who waits. You stop expecting consistency. You become grateful for sudden attention, even when it disrupts your peace. You no longer ask whether their behavior fits your life. You keep changing your life to fit their behavior. This is why self-betrayal can be difficult to recognize. It rarely begins with one large decision. It grows through many moments in which you leave yourself behind to preserve the connection. Each moment seems small, but together they create a life in which your own direction disappears. You may betray your voice by saying nothing when something needs to be addressed. You may betray your body by remaining in constant stress. You may betray your future by postponing decisions that matter to you. You may betray your values by accepting conduct you once believed you would never tolerate. The longer the waiting continues, the more difficult it may feel to stop. You think about everything you have already invested. You remember the years, effort, forgiveness, and sacrifices. Leaving now feels like admitting that all of it was wasted. This is the trap of past investment. You continue giving because you have already given so much. You believe one more season may finally produce the result that makes every previous season meaningful. But past time cannot be recovered by adding more time to the same pattern. If a road is leading away from where you want to go, walking further does not make the earlier steps valuable. Wisdom allows you to turn around without calling yourself foolish for having started. Your past patience was based on what you knew and hoped at the time. You do not need to punish yourself for it, but you also do not need to remain loyal to an old decision after new truth has appeared. Buddhist teachings remind us that everything changes. A choice that once felt loving may now be harmful. A relationship that once carried promise may no longer support growth. Wisdom means responding to present conditions, not blindly repeating what you decided in the past. You are allowed to update your decision. You are allowed to say, I meant it when I promised patience, but I now understand that this waiting is damaging me. Changing direction does not mean your earlier love was false. It means your awareness has grown. You may also be waiting for the person to recognize your value. You believe that one day they will understand what you have given. Perhaps they will compare you with someone else and realize how rare your care was. Perhaps distance will make them appreciate your presence. This hope can keep you tied to a future moment of recognition. You want them not only to choose you, but to understand why choosing you matters. You want your patience to be rewarded with gratitude. But another person's delayed recognition cannot restore the years in which you felt unseen. Even if they return, you must still ask whether they have truly changed or simply miss what you provided. Missing your comfort is not the same as becoming ready to love you well. A person may return because they are lonely, because another relationship failed, or because your absence removed a source of support. Their return may feel like the answer to your waiting, but it is not automatically evidence of growth. Wisdom looks beyond the return. It asks what is different. Do they take responsibility without blaming circumstances? Can they describe the harm clearly? Have they changed their habits before asking for access to you again? Are they prepared to build something mutual, or do they only want relief from missing you? Patience does not mean reopening the door whenever someone knocks. Sometimes patience means allowing time to reveal whether change is real before you trust another promise. You can be compassionate without immediately restoring the old relationship. You may need to observe from a distance. Genuine change does not disappear when it is not instantly rewarded. A person who has truly grown will understand why trust takes time. They will not demand quick forgiveness or accuse you of being cruel for protecting yourself. Your previous patience may have been directed entirely toward them. Wise patience may now need to be directed toward your own healing. You may need time to rebuild confidence, understand your patterns, and remember who you were before waiting became the center of your life. Do not rush yourself into another relationship simply to prove you have moved on. Do not force forgiveness before anger has been understood. Do not demand that grief disappear because you made the right decision. Leaving a harmful pattern does not immediately remove the attachment created within it. You may still miss them. You may still wonder whether waiting a little longer would have changed everything. The mind often creates beautiful futures after an ending because it no longer has to face daily reality. It remembers the possibility more easily than the pain. When this happens, return to the whole truth. Do not focus only on their best moments or your strongest hopes. Remember why waiting became impossible. Remember the needs you repeatedly silenced. Remember how uncertainty affected your mind, body, and direction. This is not bitterness, it is balance. Nostalgia chooses only what makes returning attractive. Wisdom remembers enough to protect the lesson. You may also feel shame for waiting so long. You look back and wonder why you accepted so little. You may think a stronger person would have left earlier, but shame does not help you recover the self you abandoned. It continues the betrayal by turning your pain into evidence against you. Compassion asks what kept you waiting. Perhaps you feared loneliness. Perhaps you believed commitment required endurance. Perhaps you saw genuine goodness in the person and hoped it would become consistent. Understanding these reasons helps you grow. Condemning yourself only deepens the wound. You do not need to call yourself weak. You need to recognize the belief that made endless patience seem necessary. Maybe you believed love means never giving up. This idea sounds noble, but it ignores an important truth. Not everything should be preserved. Some relationships continue only because one person is willing to carry what two people should share. Refusing to give up can become refusal to accept reality. There are times when devotion is powerful. When both people are committed, patience can help them survive illness, financial trouble, misunderstanding, and difficult growth. The struggle may be real, but both people remain present. Unreturned love is different. One person keeps investing while the other remains uncertain, distant, or unavailable. Patience cannot create mutuality where one person does not choose it. It can only extend the unequal arrangement. You must therefore examine what your waiting is serving. Is it supporting a relationship that is slowly becoming healthier, or is it supporting your fear of ending it? Is it giving someone reasonable time or protecting them from every deadline? Is it guided by love or by your belief that leaving would mean failure? Honest answers may hurt, but they restore choice. Another hidden form of self-betrayal occurs when you keep waiting because the person gives you no clear answer. They may say they care but are confused. They may ask you not to leave while refusing to define the relationship. They may promise that the future could be different without explaining what they are doing to create that difference. These words keep hope alive without creating responsibility. You remain emotionally committed to a possibility they are free to abandon at any time. You may even feel guilty for asking for clarity because they say pressure makes things harder. But clarity is not cruelty. Asking where you stand is not the same as controlling someone. You have a right to make informed choices about your own life. When another person withholds clarity while continuing to receive your love, they prevent you from choosing freely. You do not need to force them to answer. Their repeated refusal may itself become the answer you need. A person who continually avoids clarity is showing that they are not prepared to offer the security you seek. Wisdom does not always wait for spoken confirmation. It observes behavior. It recognizes that uncertainty repeated over time is a condition, not a brief moment. There may come a point when you realize that the person is not asking for patience. They are asking for access without responsibility. They want your comfort, understanding, affection, or loyalty, but they do not want the duties that come with loving you openly. You can care about them and still refuse this arrangement. You can say, "I will not continue giving the benefits of commitment where commitment is continually withheld." That is not manipulation. It is alignment between what you give and what the relationship truly is. When you stop overgiving, the connection may change quickly. The person may become distant because what held them close was not mutual love, but what they received from you. This realization can be painful, but it is also clear. Sometimes your patience hides the truth because your constant effort keeps the relationship looking alive. When you stop initiating, repairing, reminding, and carrying, you discover what remains without your labor. This discovery is not a game. Do not withdraw simply to test whether they chase you. That still makes your action dependent on their response. Step back because you need to see reality and restore balance. If the relationship disappears when you stop doing everything, then your effort was not supporting the connection, it was creating it. Accepting this can awaken grief, but grief is not always a sign to return. Sometimes grief is the cost of leaving illusion. You are mourning the bond, the hope, and the person you became while trying to keep both alive. Let the grief move at its own pace. This is where true patience becomes necessary. You were patient with another person for a long time. Now be patient with the heart that must release them. Do not expect yourself to feel free immediately. Freedom may begin as emptiness. The messages stop. The waiting ends. The emotional highs and lows become quiet. At first, that quiet may feel like absence rather than peace. Your nervous system may be used to uncertainty. It may search for the next message, conflict, apology, or sudden moment of closeness. Without the cycle, ordinary calm can feel unfamiliar. Stay gently with that calm. Do not rush back to pain simply because pain feels known. Familiar suffering is not safer than unfamiliar peace. It is only more practiced. As time passes, you may notice energy returning. You no longer spend hours predicting someone's readiness. You stop shaping your days around uncertain contact. You can make decisions without wondering how they might affect a future that never became clear. This is how you begin returning to yourself, not through one dramatic act, but through the restoration of time, attention, and direction. You remember that your life has its own movement. It is not a waiting room for someone else's healing. You have seasons too. You have needs that change, dreams that require action, and years that deserve to be lived fully. You cannot keep placing your life on hold while another person decides whether to enter it honestly. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence reminds us that time does not stop. Every moment arises and passes. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to wake you from the belief that you have endless years to wait for a different reality. There is wisdom in giving people time. There is also wisdom in recognizing when time has already spoken. Time reveals patterns. It shows what a person repeatedly chooses when promises are no longer new and consequences are no longer immediate. If years have passed and the same emotional absence remains, more time may not be the missing ingredient. Courage may be. Courage does not always look like confrontation. Sometimes it is the quiet decision to stop waiting. It is removing your heart from a promise that has no structure. It is accepting that you may never receive the ending you wanted. You do not need to hate the person in order to stop waiting. You do not need to decide that every moment was false. There may have been real care, meaningful memories, and sincere feelings, but something can be real and still be insufficient. You can honor what existed without sacrificing what remains of your life to what never fully arrived. You can say, "I loved you, I was patient, I hoped, but I cannot continue disappearing while I wait for you to become ready." This is not a failure of patience. It is patience becoming wise. Wise patience allows you to feel pain without making a desperate decision. It gives you enough stillness to see the pattern. It keeps anger from turning into cruelty. Then it helps you act according to reality. Passive endurance asks, "How much longer can I survive this?" Wise patience asks, "What response will reduce unnecessary suffering?" One question measures your ability to tolerate pain. The other protects your life. You were not placed here only to prove how much you can endure. Spiritual strength is not measured by the number of wounds you can carry without speaking. Sometimes strength is measured by your willingness to stop participating in what keeps creating those wounds. You may have believed leaving would mean that love lost. But love is not always victorious when a relationship continues. Sometimes love loses its dignity when it is forced to survive without mutual care. Ending the waiting can protect the loving part of you from becoming bitter. If you remain too long, patience may turn into resentment. You may begin keeping score, using past sacrifices as weapons, or hating the person for not becoming who you expected. Stepping away before your heart becomes hardened can be an act of compassion. You stop demanding that they change for you, and you stop demanding that you suffer for them. Both people are released from a bond built around waiting. They are free to face their own path. You are free to rebuild a life that does not require you to delay your truth. The decision may still hurt. Wise action does not always feel comfortable. Buddhism does not promise that truth removes pain immediately. It teaches that accepting truth prevents pain from becoming endless suffering. Pain says, "This ending matters." Suffering says, "This should not be ending, and I cannot be whole unless it becomes what I wanted." Patience helps you sit with the pain. Wisdom helps you release the demand. You can mourn without returning. You can miss someone without waiting again. You can feel love without turning that love into another obligation to remain available. Each time you choose not to reopen the old cycle, you keep a promise to yourself. You prove that your needs will no longer be postponed indefinitely. You show your heart that patience includes protecting it from repeated harm. Slowly, self-betrayal becomes self-loyalty. Self-loyalty is not selfishness. It does not mean you always place your comfort above every relationship. It means you refuse to sacrifice your core well-being for a bond that does not carry mutual responsibility. It means your compassion for others will no longer require cruelty toward yourself. You can still be patient with human imperfection. You can forgive mistakes, allow growth, and remain calm during difficult seasons. But you will look for shared effort. You will notice whether the person uses patience as space to grow or as permission to remain unchanged. You will stop measuring love by how long you wait. You will measure it by the honesty, responsibility, and care that exist while you are together. And when these things are absent, you will not automatically assume that more patience is the answer. You will pause, observe, and ask what wisdom requires. Sometimes wisdom will say, "Give this time." Sometimes it will say, "Speak clearly." Sometimes it will say, "Set a limit." And sometimes, after every honest effort has been made, it will quietly say, "This is enough." Learning to hear that final message can save years of your life. Enough does not mean you have stopped caring. It means you have stopped confusing suffering with devotion. It means you recognize that a person's future readiness cannot continue controlling your present life. You may never know whether one more month or one more year would have changed them. That uncertainty must not become another chain. Every decision in life closes other possibilities. Wisdom does not wait for perfect certainty, because perfect certainty rarely comes. You choose based on the pattern you have seen, the truth you have spoken, and the effect the relationship has had on you. Then you accept that the future belongs to causes and choices beyond your control. Perhaps they will change after you leave. This possibility may be painful. You may wonder why they could not change while you were there. But their later growth would not prove that you should have waited longer. Sometimes consequences awaken people in ways that comfort cannot. Their transformation, if it happens, belongs to their journey. Your decision still protected the person you were becoming. You cannot judge your past choice using knowledge that did not yet exist. Perhaps they will not change at all. Then your release will have saved you from building more years around the same hope. Either way, your life cannot remain dependent on predicting their future. Your responsibility is to meet the present honestly. In the present, are you loved with care? Is effort shared? Is there movement, truth, and emotional safety? Or are you surviving on promises, rare moments, and the idea that patience will one day be rewarded? The answer may already be living inside you. You may have known for a long time, but hope made you wait. Fear made you soften the truth. Love made you believe one more season would be different. Do not shame yourself for that hope. Simply stop asking hope to perform the work of evidence. Let patience become what it was always meant to be, a steady mind that does not react blindly, a heart that does not become cruel, and a wisdom that knows when stillness has taught everything it can teach. Then move. Move toward honesty. Move toward a life that can meet you now. Move away from arrangements that ask you to remain unfinished until someone else becomes ready. Move without hatred, but do not move without resolve. You have waited for their healing, maturity, courage, and recognition. Perhaps the next act of patience is allowing yourself to heal from the waiting. Perhaps the next act of love is refusing to silence another part of yourself. Perhaps the next season belongs not to their potential, but to your return. You do not betray love when you stop waiting forever. You betray yourself when you know the truth, feel the cost, and continue abandoning your life because another person may one day choose to participate in it. Wise patience never asks you to disappear. It teaches you to remain calm enough to see clearly, brave enough to act truthfully, and compassionate enough to release what cannot meet you. And when you finally stop waiting, you may discover that the life you kept postponing was waiting for you too. And when you finally stop waiting for someone to become ready, you may discover something even more painful. The relationship may not be ending now. In your heart, it may have been ending for a long time, even while you were still waking up beside them, speaking to them, caring for them, and pretending that everything between you was still alive. There is a grief that begins before goodbye. It appears when someone is still present in your life, but no longer present with you. Their body may remain close, yet their warmth feels far away. You still share the same rooms, routines, messages, or responsibilities, but something important has disappeared. The relationship continues on the outside, while quietly fading on the inside. At first, you may struggle to name what has changed. There may not have been one dramatic betrayal or one final argument. Instead, small forms of closeness begin disappearing. They stop asking about your thoughts. They no longer notice the changes in your voice. Conversations become shorter, flatter, and more practical. Affection becomes rare or automatic. The little signs that once made you feel known slowly vanish. You remember when they were curious about you. They wanted to hear your stories, understand your fears, and know what made you happy. They noticed when you became quiet. They made space for your feelings. Even ordinary moments carried warmth because both of you were emotionally present. Now you may sit beside them and feel alone. You speak, but they barely listen. You share something meaningful, and their attention remains somewhere else. You begin a conversation, but it quickly turns into silence, distraction, or irritation. You are not physically abandoned, yet your heart experiences absence every day. This kind of loss is difficult because there is no clear moment when mourning is supposed to begin. When someone dies or leaves, the world recognizes that something has ended. People understand why you are grieving, but when a relationship is still technically continuing, your sadness may feel confusing, private, and difficult to explain. Others may look at your life and believe you still have the person. They may say you should be grateful that the relationship has not ended. They may not understand how it feels to live beside someone who no longer reaches for you emotionally. You may even tell yourself that you have no right to grieve because nothing official has happened. But grief does not wait for official endings. It begins whenever the heart recognizes that something precious is no longer available. You can mourn a person who is still alive. You can mourn closeness that has disappeared. You can mourn a relationship that still has a name but no longer has the tenderness that once gave the name meaning. You may continue performing the relationship because the truth feels too painful. You still prepare meals, answer messages, attend events, celebrate important days, and carry out familiar duties. From the outside, everything appears normal, but each action may feel like repeating lines from a story that no longer feels true. You know what a loving partner, friend, or companion is supposed to do, so you continue doing it. You ask how their day went. You remember what they need. You offer care when they are tired. You keep the routines alive because stopping them would force you to face what has already changed. Sometimes performance becomes a way of protecting hope. You believe that if you continue acting as though the relationship is healthy, warmth may return. You keep creating opportunities for closeness. You arrange special moments, begin deeper conversations, or try to recreate old memories. You hope the person will suddenly remember what you once shared. For a short time, something may seem to return. They may smile in the old way. You may laugh together or experience a brief moment of tenderness. Your heart quickly reaches for it. You tell yourself the relationship is not gone. You use one good evening to cover many empty weeks. But when the warmth disappears again, the grief becomes heavier. You are not only mourning the distance, you are mourning the repeated return of hope. Each brief connection feels like the beginning of restoration, and each return to emotional absence feels like losing the relationship again. This can create a strange cycle. You grieve, hope, reconnect briefly, and grieve again. There is no clean ending, so the pain remains open. You cannot fully let go because the person is still there. You cannot fully feel secure because the closeness is not. The mind may keep asking what happened. You search for the moment when everything changed. You wonder whether you missed a warning sign. You replay earlier conversations and examine your own behavior. Perhaps you blame yourself for not being attentive enough, attractive enough, calm enough, or easy enough to love. You may believe that if you can understand the cause, you can reverse the loss. This belief keeps you emotionally busy. Instead of mourning what has changed, you begin trying to repair every possible reason for the distance. You become kinder, quieter, more helpful, and less demanding. You avoid difficult subjects so the person will not pull farther away. You try to create peace by removing your own needs. Yet the more you disappear, the less genuine closeness becomes possible, because real intimacy requires two visible people. Sometimes the relationship did not lose warmth because you failed. People change. Their priorities change. Their emotional capacity changes. Their desires, fears, and values may move in another direction. A bond that once felt natural may become strained because one or both people are no longer who they were at the beginning. Buddhist teachings on impermanence ask you to see this without turning change into personal punishment. Everything formed by conditions will change when those conditions change. Seasons change, bodies age, interests shift, and relationships take new forms. Nothing remains exactly as it once was. This truth can feel frightening because the mind wants to secure what it loves. When something brings happiness, you want it to remain. You hope the person will always look at you with the same affection. You believe the closeness you share should continue because it once felt so real. But something can be real and still change. The tenderness was not necessarily false because it no longer exists in the same form. The earlier love may have been sincere. The memories may still be meaningful. Impermanence does not say the past was a lie. It says the past cannot be forced to remain present. Suffering grows when you demand that what has changed must return to what it was. You compare every current moment with an earlier one. You remember how easily they used to speak, how quickly they responded, and how naturally they showed care. The present always loses because it is being measured against a memory shaped by longing. Memory often keeps the brightest moments and softens the difficult ones. It may show you the beginning of the relationship as a perfect place that can be recovered if both of you try hard enough. You forget that even then there were signs, tensions, and differences. The past becomes more beautiful because the present feels empty. You begin loving a memory alongside the person. You speak to who they used to be. You wait for that version to return. When they respond differently, you feel shocked, even though their recent pattern has already shown you who they are now. Acceptance begins when you stop asking the present to behave like the past. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you become willing to meet what is actually here. You ask whether warmth exists now, whether effort is shared now, and whether both people still want to create closeness now. These questions may produce painful answers, but they also end the confusion created by comparison. You cannot build a present relationship with a past version of someone. You can only relate to the person who is standing before you today. Perhaps they are emotionally tired. Perhaps resentment has grown between you. Perhaps they no longer want the same future. Perhaps they care about you but cannot offer the depth they once offered. There may be many explanations, but the central truth remains: something has changed, and refusing to name it will not restore it. You may fear that admitting the change will make it permanent. As long as you avoid saying it aloud, part of you can pretend everything is temporary. Naming the distance feels like opening a door that cannot be closed. But truth does not create the condition, it only reveals it. Saying, "we no longer feel close," does not cause the loss of closeness. It gives both people a chance to respond honestly. Without that honesty, the relationship continues through habit, while both hearts become increasingly separate. A truthful conversation may bring renewal if both people still care and are willing to work. Sometimes distance grows because pain has remained unspoken. One person may feel ignored while the other feels rejected. Both may be protecting themselves, waiting for the other to reach out first. When this is the case, honest communication can uncover what has been hidden. But repair requires more than remembering old love. Both people must be willing to create new forms of closeness. The relationship cannot simply return to the beginning because both people have changed since then. Renewal is not a return. It is a new creation. It may include different habits, clearer communication, greater responsibility, and a deeper understanding of each person's needs. The old relationship may be gone, but something more honest can sometimes grow in its place. However, this possibility depends on mutual effort. You cannot rebuild closeness alone. You can begin the conversation, admit your part, and express your desire to reconnect. But if the other person remains distant, dismissive, or uninterested, your effort cannot produce a relationship for two people. This is where grief becomes necessary. Grief is not a weakness that prevents you from moving forward. It is the mind's way of recognizing that something mattered and is no longer present in the same form. It allows you to stop pretending that the loss has not happened. You may have been avoiding grief because you believe mourning means giving up. You think that as long as you continue fighting, there is still hope. But grief does not always close the door. Sometimes it helps you see clearly enough to discover whether there is anything real left to save. Without grief, you may keep demanding that the relationship return to an earlier shape. With grief, you can release what it used to be and ask what it can honestly become now. Perhaps it can be renewed. Perhaps it must become a different kind of connection. Perhaps it must end. The answer cannot appear while you remain committed to pretending nothing has changed. Mourning inside a relationship can feel lonely because the person you would normally turn toward is connected to the loss itself. You may want comfort from them, but their distance is what is hurting you. You reach for the same person who no longer knows how or no longer wants to hold your pain. This can make the grief feel trapped. You cannot fully share it with them because they may deny that anything is wrong. You may be afraid that expressing sadness will push them farther away. So you carry the loss silently while continuing to smile, speak, and care. At night, the truth may become harder to avoid. When distractions disappear, you remember how different things feel. You may look at the person sleeping beside you and wonder when you became strangers. You may miss them while they are only a few inches away. This is one of the most painful forms of loneliness because presence usually promises connection. Their physical closeness reminds you of the emotional distance. You see what remains, but you feel what is gone. You may become ashamed of wanting more. You tell yourself that relationships naturally become less exciting over time. You believe you should accept routine, reduced affection, and fewer conversations as normal. It is true that love changes. Early intensity often settles. Daily responsibilities can make romance quieter. But quiet love is not the same as emotional absence. Mature love may be less dramatic, yet it still contains attention, respect, interest, and care. The person may not express affection in the same way as before, but you still feel considered. You still sense that your inner life matters. Emotional absence feels different. You begin feeling like part of the background. Your presence is expected but not appreciated. Your care is used but not deeply noticed. The relationship functions, but it no longer feels emotionally alive. You may stay because functioning seems safer than ending. There may be shared children, finances, a home, family expectations, history, or fear of loneliness. The relationship may hold many practical structures that cannot be changed easily. These realities deserve serious attention. Acceptance does not demand careless decisions. It does not tell you to destroy a shared life in one emotional moment. It asks you to stop lying to yourself about the condition of the bond. You can recognize that the relationship is emotionally broken before knowing what to do next. Awareness and action do not always happen on the same day. Sometimes you need time to understand, seek support, prepare, or discover whether repair is possible. The important thing is that preparation must not become another form of denial. You should not use practical difficulty to convince yourself that the emotional loss does not matter. You can remain temporarily while still seeing clearly. Clarity changes the way you live inside the situation. You stop expecting small gestures to carry meanings they do not have. You stop calling occasional attention a complete return of intimacy. You begin protecting your emotional health, finding support, and making honest decisions about your future. You also stop blaming yourself for grieving. Your sadness is not an attack on the person. It is a response to loss. You can care about them and still mourn what disappeared between you. Sometimes you are not only mourning the relationship you had, you are mourning the relationship you believed you would have. The future once seemed clear. You pictured years of companionship, shared growth, and emotional safety. You imagined becoming older beside someone who would continue. Knowing you deeply, when that future begins to disappear, grief reaches beyond the present. You lose plans that never happened, conversations that will never take place, and a version of yourself that expected to be loved differently. Unlived futures can feel as painful as lost memories. They were not real events, but they were real hopes. They influenced your choices, sacrifices, and sense of direction. When they collapse, you may feel that part of your life story has been taken away. Allow yourself to mourn these hopes without turning them into reasons to remain trapped. Grief honors what you wanted. It does not promise that wanting it strongly enough will make it happen. Buddhist wisdom encourages you to hold hopes lightly. This does not mean becoming hopeless. It means remembering that every future is uncertain. You can plan and love while accepting that life may unfold differently. When you hold one future too tightly, any change feels like the destruction of your whole life. When you loosen your grip, you begin seeing that the loss of one future does not mean the loss of every future. The path ahead may not look like the one you planned. It may include rebuilding the relationship in a new way. It may include living alone for a season. It may include discovering parts of yourself that had been neglected. You do not need to see the entire path before admitting that the old one has ended. Grief often asks you to release identity as well as connection. Perhaps being their partner, supporter, or closest companion became central to who you were. Even when the relationship became empty, the role remained familiar. You knew how to behave inside it. You knew the routines, expectations, and responsibilities. Without the relationship as you understood it, you may wonder who you are. This fear can make you continue performing long after your heart has recognized the loss. You are not only afraid of losing them, you are afraid of losing the self you became beside them, yet that self may already be disappearing. Your world may have narrowed around preserving a bond that no longer nourishes you. Grief can open the space to meet yourself again. You may return to interests, friendships, beliefs, and dreams that were set aside. This return may feel uncertain because those parts of you have been quiet for a long time. Begin gently. You do not need to create a completely new life overnight. Notice what still brings a feeling of aliveness. Notice where your mind becomes peaceful. Notice which people allow you to speak without becoming smaller. These experiences remind you that your emotional life is larger than one relationship. The bond may have mattered deeply, but it does not contain every part of who you are. There may also be anger inside your grief. You may feel angry that the person allowed the relationship to fade without speaking honestly. You may resent the effort you continued giving. You may think about all the moments when they could have noticed your sadness but did not. Anger can reveal that something valuable was neglected. It may show that you expected mutual care and did not receive it. Do not shame the anger, but do not let it turn every memory into hatred. People sometimes withdraw because they are afraid, confused, depressed, resentful, or emotionally limited. Understanding these possibilities may soften your anger, but it should not erase the loss. Compassion and truth can exist together. They may not have intended to create this grief. You may still be living inside it. Their reasons matter, but so does the result. You may also direct anger toward yourself. You wonder why you did not speak sooner or why you kept pretending. Perhaps you noticed the change long ago but refused to believe it. Forgive the part of you that needed time. Acceptance is not easy when the truth threatens your entire life. Denial can be the mind's temporary protection against pain that feels too large to hold at once. The problem begins when temporary protection becomes a permanent home. There comes a time when avoiding grief creates more suffering than feeling it. You become tired from holding together what has already changed. Acceptance allows the energy used for denial to become available for healing. You no longer have to monitor every sign, force every interaction, or keep telling yourself that tomorrow will look like yesterday. You begin meeting each day as it is. Some days may contain real warmth. Other days may confirm the distance. You observe without immediately turning either experience into a final story. Mindfulness teaches you to stay close to what is happening without clinging to one result. You notice tenderness when it appears, but you do not use it to erase the larger pattern. You notice sadness without, deciding that nothing good can ever return. This balanced awareness protects you from being pulled between false hope and complete despair. You see the whole condition of the relationship. The whole condition may include care without intimacy, loyalty without joy, history without present connection, or companionship without emotional safety. These truths are complex. A relationship does not have to be completely terrible to have reached its end. This is important because many people believe they can leave only when the other person becomes cruel. They search for a clear villain so their decision will feel justified. But some relationships fade quietly. Two people may still respect each other while no longer sharing the bond they once had. You do not have to invent hatred to accept change. You can acknowledge that someone is a good person and still recognize that the relationship no longer allows either of you to live truthfully. Sometimes remaining together after love has changed creates greater harm than an honest ending. Resentment grows. Both people become colder. Small disagreements carry the weight of years of unspoken grief. The relationship turns into a place where each person feels trapped. An ending handled with care may preserve more respect than years of forced closeness. It allows both people to stop acting. It gives each person the chance to live honestly, even if honesty causes temporary pain. This does not mean ending is always the answer. Some relationships can recover when both people admit what has been lost. But recovery begins with mourning. You must acknowledge that the old closeness is gone before you can create something new. You cannot repair what you keep pretending is unbroken. A sincere conversation may begin simply, "I feel that we are still together, but we are no longer emotionally close. I miss what we had, and I need to know whether we both want to rebuild something." This statement does not accuse. It names the present and invites honesty. The response will reveal much. A person who still wants the relationship may feel uncomfortable but remain engaged. They may admit their own distance, ask questions, and become willing to change patterns. A person who no longer wants connection may avoid the conversation, dismiss your experience, or offer vague promises without action. Their response becomes part of the truth you must accept. You cannot force them to grieve with you. They may have emotionally left long before you recognized the loss. They may already be at a different stage of acceptance. This can feel deeply unfair because you are beginning to mourn while they seem calm. Their calm does not necessarily mean the relationship meant nothing. People process endings differently. Some detach slowly while remaining physically present. By the time they speak, much of their grieving may already have happened privately. This is another reason endings can feel sudden to one person and expected to the other. The relationship may have been dying in silence for months or years. If this has happened, do not spend all your energy demanding that they feel pain in the same way you do. Their emotional response cannot become the measure of your importance. Your shared history remains real even if they move through the ending differently. Turn your attention toward your own grief. Let it have movement. Speak with someone trustworthy. Write honestly. Cry when the sadness rises. Rest when your body feels heavy. Grief is not only a thought. It can affect sleep, appetite, concentration, and energy. Treat yourself with care rather than expecting normal performance while your inner world is changing. You may still have responsibilities, but you do not need to judge yourself for moving more slowly. There may be days when you feel free, followed by days when the loss feels fresh again. Healing does not move in a straight line. A song, place, smell, date, or ordinary habit may bring the past close. Do not treat these moments as failure. Memory is part of attachment. The mind returns to what carried emotional meaning. You can allow the memory to arise without making it a command to restore the relationship. You can say, "This mattered, I miss it, and it has changed." Those three truths can exist together. You do not have to deny love to accept loss. You do not need to make every memory painful in order to move forward. A beautiful memory can remain beautiful without becoming a reason to live in the past. Impermanence teaches that every experience passes, but passing does not remove meaning. A flower is not worthless because it does not bloom forever. A season is not false because it ends. In the same way, a relationship can have brought joy, growth, and love, even if it cannot continue in the form you wanted. This understanding can release some bitterness. You stop demanding that the relationship last forever in order for the time you shared to matter. You allow it to belong to a chapter of your life without forcing it to become the entire story. The difficulty is that the chapter may still appear open because the person remains near. You may continue living together, speaking regularly, or sharing responsibilities. In such cases, grief needs boundaries. You may need to stop seeking emotional closeness they no longer offer. You may need to reduce conversations that repeatedly reopen hope. You may need to create physical or emotional space while deciding what comes next. Boundaries are not meant to punish the person. They help reality become visible. When old habits continue, the mind can pretend the relationship remains unchanged. New boundaries acknowledge that your inner experience has shifted. Perhaps you stop sharing your deepest feelings with someone who handles them carelessly. Perhaps you begin sleeping separately, spending more time independently, or asking for a clear plan. The appropriate boundary depends on your situation, safety, responsibilities, and values. What matters is that your outer life slowly begins matching the truth of your inner life. Continuing every old routine while privately accepting the loss can keep grief frozen. Some form of change may be necessary for healing to move. This change may be small at first. You may reclaim one evening each week for yourself. You may stop waiting for them to suggest time together. You may seek counseling or spiritual guidance. Each action says, "I am no longer ignoring what has changed." Be careful not to use independence as a secret test. Do not step back only to make them notice and chase you. That keeps your attention fixed on their response. Create space because you need clarity, not because you want to control the outcome. If they notice and sincerely want to rebuild, their effort will become visible. If they remain unmoved, the distance may confirm what you already sensed. Either way, your action returns you to reality. Acceptance can feel cold to people who confuse love with constant hope, But acceptance is not the death of love. It is the end of the struggle to make love appear where it no longer lives in the same way. You may still care for the person. You may want them to be safe and happy. You may even remain connected in a different form. Acceptance simply removes the demand that they continue being who they once were for you. It also removes the demand that you remain who you once were for them. You are allowed to change. You may no longer be able to tolerate emotional distance that you once accepted. Your needs may have become clearer. Your understanding of love may have deepened. Impermanence applies to you as well. The person who entered the relationship may not be the person now standing inside it. Growth can make old arrangements impossible. This is not always failure. Sometimes it is the natural result of becoming more honest. You may grieve not because the relationship was completely wrong, but because it was right for an earlier version of your life. It offered lessons, companionship, or healing that mattered then. Now the conditions have changed. Recognizing this can reduce the need to assign blame. Not every ending requires someone to be guilty. Some endings happen because truth has moved. Still, do not use spiritual acceptance to avoid necessary anger, conversation, or action. Acceptance is not pretending everything is peaceful. It is seeing what is here without adding denial. If disrespect, manipulation, or harm is present, acceptance means recognizing it clearly. It does not mean calmly remaining. Buddhist wisdom joins compassion with wise response. You can accept that someone is behaving harmfully and choose distance. Likewise, you can accept that warmth has disappeared and decide what that truth requires. Acceptance is the beginning of response, not the end of responsibility. The mind may continue bargaining. It says perhaps one trip, celebration, conversation, or act of affection will restore everything. Bargaining is a normal part of grief. It tries to protect you from finality by creating one more possibility. Notice these thoughts without building your life around them. A special moment can offer information, but it cannot carry the entire weight of repair. Reconnection must enter ordinary life. It must survive after the holiday ends and the emotional conversation becomes a memory. Look for consistent presence rather than dramatic moments. Ask whether the person is curious about you again, whether difficult subjects can be discussed, and whether affection comes with responsibility. True renewal becomes a pattern. When that pattern does not appear, stop demanding that one beautiful evening prove the relationship has returned. Let moments be moments. Do not turn them into promises they cannot keep. This restraint protects you from mourning the same bond again and again. It helps grief become a movement toward truth rather than a cycle of renewed illusion. Eventually, you may understand that the relationship did not end in one moment. It ended in many small absences. It ended each time tenderness was replaced by indifference, each time honesty was avoided, and each time one person stopped reaching while the other kept pretending not to notice. Your decision may also arrive through small moments. One day, you stop explaining the distance. Another day, you admit that you are lonely. Later, you realize that the past cannot be restored by desire alone. Finally, you become willing to act. Do not rush this process, but do not worship delay. Grief needs time, yet truth needs movement. You can be gentle with yourself while still moving toward a life that matches what you know. Perhaps the relationship will take a new form. Perhaps both of you will rebuild with deeper honesty. Perhaps you will separate with respect. The exact outcome is less important than ending the performance. When performance ends, real life can begin again. You no longer smile to protect appearances. You no longer call distance peace. You no longer use history as proof that the present is still alive. You allow yourself to say, Something beautiful existed here, but it has changed. That sentence may break your heart, but it can also release it. It gives grief a name. It honors the past without demanding its return. It creates space for whatever truth comes next. You may still feel love after accepting the loss. Love does not always disappear when a relationship changes. Sometimes it becomes quieter, less possessive, and more distant. You can care without continuing the same bond. Buddhist non-attachment does not ask you to erase feeling. It asks you to release your grip on form. You stop insisting that love must look exactly as it once did. You stop demanding that this person remain in the same role forever. This release can feel like a death because an identity, future, and familiar structure are passing away. But impermanence also creates space. When one form ends, life is no longer forced to repeat it. New possibilities can arise, though you do not need to search for them immediately. First, let the old form be mourned. Let your mind and body understand that something has changed. Then, slowly, notice what remains. You remain. Your capacity to love remains. Your wisdom is deeper. Your ability to recognize emotional absence has grown. Your future has changed, but it has not disappeared. The relationship may no longer hold you as it once did, but life is still holding you. Each morning arrives without demanding that you already know what comes next. You can meet one day at a time. This is the quiet gift inside acceptance. You stop trying to return to a place that no longer exists. You turn toward the ground beneath your feet. The past may still call to you. Let it speak without obeying it. Thank it for what it gave. Learn from what it took. Then return to the present, where your life is still waiting to be honestly lived. Grief may have begun while you were still inside the relationship, but it does not have to become your permanent home. Once you admit what has changed, mourning can finally move instead of circling endlessly around denial. You no longer have to keep the relationship alive through your effort alone. You no longer have to pretend warmth where there is only memory. You no longer have to demand that today resemble yesterday before you allow yourself peace. Acceptance does not tell you that the loss is small. It tells you that the loss is real and that you are strong enough to meet it. And sometimes that is the moment true healing begins. Not when the person returns to who they were, not when the past is recreated, and not when every question is answered. Healing begins when you stop waiting for the relationship to come back to life and gently return to the life still breathing within you. Loving someone should never require you to disappear. Compassion without wisdom becomes permission for neglect. Hope can keep you attached to who someone might become, and the need to be chosen can make another person's attention feel like proof of your worth. When your pain is repeatedly dismissed, you may stop trusting yourself. When waiting has no limit, patience becomes self-betrayal. And sometimes the hardest truth is realizing that you have already been grieving the relationship while still living inside it. Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to stop loving. It teaches you to love without abandoning your peace, your voice, or your dignity. You can understand someone's wounds without becoming the place where those wounds are acted out. You can honor what you felt while releasing what continues to make you smaller. Letting go does not mean your love was false. It means you have finally chosen to stop losing yourself. If these words touched a part of you that has been silent for too long, leave the comment, "I am returning to myself." Let those words become a promise that your heart will no longer have to beg for the love it deserves. Subscribe to the channel for more Buddhist wisdom that helps you release suffering, see clearly, and return to inner peace.